Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players, uncover their stories, and discover what makes them tick. If you love guitar, music, and the backstory of people's lives, stick around. You're in the right place. Hey, this is Craig. Real quick, I just want to let you know that this is a very long interview, maybe the longest one I've done. I don't know. But I want to encourage you to sit through the whole thing and listen to it. Jamie is not only been an incredibly successful guy who is kind enough to share a lot of the professional and personal aspects of his life, but there's so many lessons in here about not just life and surviving things and overcoming challenges, but about connecting the dots and how he put things together and how this person led to that person. And man, just sit through the whole thing. I would really encourage you to do that. Even if you have to do that over a couple of days, it's really well worth it straight through the end. He's did a ton of sharing. Definitely one of my favorite interviews. He's a very cool guy and an extremely sincere person, and it's going to be worth your time. So thanks very much for listening. As always, take care and see you in a minute. Hi, this is Craig. Just want to let you know you can now advertise here on Everyone Loves Guitar podcast. For more information, go to everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. That's everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. I got a super cool guy, an excellent player, and just a very nice, sweet human being as well. We're with the one and only Jamie Glaser, and it's really weird. I'm not a jazz guy, as some of you folks know, but my one favorite, like literally my favorite jazz song is a song called Mirage off of a Jean-Luc Ponty album. It's called John-Luc Ponty Live from 1978. And Jamie Glaser was the guitarist on there, man. So this is really cool. He's actually got more energy than me, which is pretty interesting. And I also want to just thank Steve Truglio for hooking us up. So shout out to Steve. Thanks very much. Let me tell you a little bit about Jamie. He's first of all, let me just say that the bio I'm going to read for him is like the part of the iceberg sticking out of the water, man. We'd be here for like 3 hours if I talked about everything he's done. And he's a quintessential sideman because his name is not a household word, and he's had a tremendously successful career, and he's involved in a lot of cool things outside of music. So originally from New York City, currently living in Utah, his dad was actually a songwriter whose songs were recorded by Nat King Cole, Frank Sinatra, Sarah Vaughan, and Joe Williams. His dad also wrote a how-to book called Writing Lyrics That Make Sense and Dollars. Jamie originally studied bass, but he switched over to guitar when he realized girls seemed to like guitar players. Imagine that. I've never heard that before. Graduated from Berklee with a composition bachelor's degree, and some of his classmates were Vinnie Colaiuta, Mike Stern, Al DiMeola, Bill Frisell, and more. He first played with Jean-Luc Ponty for 2 years. Alan Holdsworth was leaving the band and I think got Jamie the gig. After that, he played with Lenny White, and who, of course, is a legendary drummer from Chick Corea's Return to Forever. That band was incredible. It was Donald Blackman on keys, Nick Maroc on other guitars, and Jamie's hero Marcus Miller on bass. He wound up going back to play with John-Luc Ponty and has been with him for years and years. How long have you been with John-Luc Ponty now?
Off and on since 77.
Wow. That's like a really long, 77. Let me carry the one. It's a long time. He moved to LA. He started doing studio sessions, including work with Bryan Adams and Eric Burdon from The Animals, and also Bill Conti, who's an Academy Award-winning movie score composer. He composed Rocky, amongst loads of other movies. Jamie's worked on major television scores like Seinfeld, Married with Children, Melrose Place, Dynasty, Saved by the Bell, Beverly Hills 90210, Don Kirshner's Rock Concert, and this is not a motion picture, but King Biscuit Flower. I will talk about that later. He also played on the Merv Griffin Show and was constantly playing out at various high-end casual affairs as a band leader and player. Through his TV work, he also played with people like Iggy Pop, Tanya Tucker, Poison, The Temptations, and the Gatlin Brothers. Wow, how many times has Iggy Pop, The Temptations, and Gatlin Brothers been said in one sentence, right? He also toured a year with Chick Corea and his electric band, playing with Chick, John Patitucci, and Dave Weckl. Then he joined the Grammy Award-winning band Manhattan Transfer, touring and recording on an album with them, which he had a great time doing. He's played a lot of music also in the Latin market, and he became the guitarist for Gloria Trevi, who was the biggest pop female artist in Mexico. Her only competition was Selena. In 1994, Jamie actually got trapped in his studio in the LA earthquake. He was scratched up a little bit, but he did suffer some emotional and mental problems after this catastrophe. And eventually it really impacted him. He lost much of his worldly possessions. We'll talk about some of this. Drummer Bob Leatherbarrow and Jonathan Wolfe encouraged Jamie to get help. They knew his problems that he was having were not due to the typical reasons that you think of people going homeless and losing their worldly possessions, which typically is driven by substance abuse. He began treatment. He was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress syndrome. And again, we'll talk about this. He wrote a book as part of it's probably safe to say part of your own therapy.
Yes, positively.
Yeah. Called Hear the Silence. He wrote the book in 2006 for people who may be depressed or are having tough times. It's a book about all the great things going on around us that people tend to not notice, and all the things Jamie learned after hitting bottom and being homeless and broke, even while his career was moving forward. He also owns a studio in Utah called Zoo Studios, where he does recording, arranging, and mastering. Jamie, and like I said, he's a really sweet guy. We've been talking for about 4 hours, I think, right? Thank you so much for your time, and I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Your reputation is that hi, everybody out there. Your reputation is that you're a great guy and that you allow the musicians and other people that you interview to be, themselves. And I could have been on here. For the listeners, we're on Skype actually looking at each other. And Craig is amazing, nice man and smart and fun, and we need to promote him. I think I'll interview him this time, and then you guys can do my interview some other time.
Oh my God!
But just a quick story. Last week, my PR person put me in touch. Somebody in ABC Radio in Chicago lost their the person they were going to interview, and they asked the PR guy who he had that they could interview. And for some reason, they chose me. So I get on this radio station. This guy has been on for probably 40 years. I will not use his name at this moment for various reasons. And he spent 45 minutes with me on the radio live yelling at me. I mean, it was the weird. I'm fortunate. He said, "Look at your resume, and you're not famous. What the hell is wrong with you?" And all this kind of stuff. And he said, "If I were you, I would have been the next Jimi Hendrix." And I was like silent, and so when I got on Skype with you this morning to get to know you a little bit before the interview, I was like, my God, this guy is the nicest, nicest man I've ever met. You didn't yell at me for not.
The bar's low.
Ozzy Osbourne's guitar player, Yeah, it's a pleasure. And hi, everybody out there. Thank you for being with us. And yeah, Steve, thanks for hooking us up. This is my friend, man.
Well, now you made me go red, man. I'm always awkward when people say all those nice things, but thank you.
It's true.
Your dad wrote a book called Writing Lyrics That Make Sense in Dollars. To me, as I was going through your bio, that means that unlike a lot of musicians, you grew up with not only the permission to make money in music, but the understanding that that's part of what it is for from a career standpoint. Is that a fair assumption?
It is. It's a little bit more complicated. My dad was he had, as you mentioned in the intro, wonderful releases with Sinatra, Nat King Cole, but every situation seemed to miss a little bit. But for example, with Nat King Cole, Capitol Records, which was his record company, called my house and asked my father to give them $10,000 cash so that his song would be the A-side. Now, for those of you who only know what a CD is or a Spotify or a download, we used to have something called records, and they had They had two sides, and the A side was the one that radio played and what was promoted. And we also had what was called payola. So people paid producers and radio stations and schmoozed the DJs so we would have success. And my father, being who he was, used the F word because he felt that his craft was good enough that he didn't need to pay to play. And he had this kind of situation, not the same, but with a lot of the artists. So my father had a day job, which was he was a liquor salesman for one of the biggest liquor distributor in the world. And he did that. And quite frankly, he hated it because he was a passionate song lyricist, and he didn't want to have to get up and be a salesman. He recognized that his peers, whoever they might be, they made a lot of money doing what they did. Whether it was Rodgers and Hammerstein, whether it was Paul Williams, who wrote a lot of the Glenn Campbell hits, they were wealthy people. And that's all of his peers were like that. So he didn't make that wealth from it, but he recognized quite clearly that that was one of the returns that you make. And he was a bit bitter towards the end there because when the Beatles came out, it pretty much killed the songwriter's trade, the songwriter in the sense that you write songs for other artists. So the Beatles were the first artists to come and write their own music and have success, even though they did a couple of covers. Their great success came from their own material, which started what we're in now, 50 years later. People are not only contained, they call it self-contained, writing their own stuff, publishing their own stuff, and it's gotten to the point where it's gotten stupid, where we're now distributing, releasing, promoting, and everything else our own stuff. It's a slippery slope with that. But indeed, I had not only the permission to make money at it, but I think because he didn't make what he thought he was deserving, that I was pushed to understand that when you work hard at something, that if that return of cash or music or money or wealth is something you desire, then you should get it. And it's simple. We had none of that. I'm an artist bullshit. I need to starve. That is complete, utter bullshit. And the truth is that everybody that says that admire the people when you ask them their list of people they admire, it's always the people who are famous, who are rich.
Yeah, typically that goes hand in hand.
Yeah, every once in a while you'll hear, well, I love this blues singer. He died broke and he played on the Mississippi, but generally you'll hear, no, my favorite guitarist was Randy Rhoads, or my favorite. They're all wealthy musicians, very wealthy, living in mansions.
I didn't realize payola was even at that corporate level. I thought it was just like the DJ. That was the only payola I knew. I cannot believe.
Yeah, the record company called, and my father, I remember him being excited because one of the CEOs of Capitol Records, I mean, it was pretty dirty, and I'm sure it still is. I had situations, I was married to a musician, and she and I went down Sunset Boulevard in Los Angeles to sell to get a record deal. And two record executives, one told us together that if she'd sleep with him, and I'm her husband.
Holy fuck.
Right?
I don't even know how to start processing this.
Right in front of my eyes. If you let, I don't want to use her name, sleep with me, I will give you a record deal. And then later on, and I can't say this because he's not alive anymore, I went to Arista Records Remember Arista?
Yeah,
Clive
of course.
Davis,
Yeah.
Barry Manilow, Whitney Houston. And they loved our music. And so the representative, again, I'm always afraid of naming people in these private stories. He was, he said if I'd sleep with him, I'd get a record deal. Now, it's pretty well known that Clive Davis and Bob Fiden and all the people at the top of Arista were gay. So, but I wasn't used to that aggressive thing, and no man has ever asked me to do that, especially knowing I'm straight. But this was what was going on,
Holy fuck.
And we had other people that shoved drugs in our face and all kinds of stuff on Sunset Boulevard. Yeah, it was it's the 80s, so
that's amazing, man.
Yeah, it was.
Man, I give you credit. If I was in front of someone and I was a young kid, and they said, if your wife's, I would like to go all Bronx on him and shit.
Would you?
Oh yeah. When I was a kid, now I wouldn't, but I would. Back then, I was a little hot tempered. Yeah.
We got in the car and I said, "Look, we really wanted a record deal. Just go and sleep with him." No, I didn't. Say it.
Wow, that's amazing, man.
I want a record deal though. And you know what? There are a lot of musicians who would do this. This conversation, if you look at social media, you're going to find that there's a whole bunch of people who talk about the virtue of being an artist. And I read a blog just recently, Craig, from Reverb Nation. You know that platform?
Sure.
It was one of their bloggers. And the entire blog was writing about that making money at music should be secondary and your passion for music should be number one. And I sat here and I was shaking because I wanted to go through the screen and say, you're the one that makes my fellow students, my fellow guitar players broke. Spotify, they're all devaluing what we do. I've had more schooling. Now, you can be schooled all kinds of ways, right, Craig? You can learn off the streets. You can learn by playing in clubs. You can learn from your mother or father, or you can have formal education like I did. Everyone is worthy, right? But when you put that kind of time in, including someone who's never had a lesson, who sits in front of YouTube for 8 hours to learn a guitar solo, you should have a result. You should have what you want. You should have fame. You should have fortune if that's what you want. Whatever you want, you should do. It works that way in every other business except music, because morons run the industry. I don't want to talk until forever here, but that's one of the reasons why I do a sight reading course and all this stuff, because the guitar industry has devalued the intelligence of guitar players. They created what's called tablature, because obviously guitar players are too dumb to learn how to read, while every other instrument they know how to read. You'll never find a trumpet player on this planet that says reading is difficult. But you go to Facebook to a group where they're talking about tablature, they go, well, you have 4 E's on the guitar, and that's a bitch. Why should I do that? I'd rather read tablature and see it marked out because I'm 3 years old and I can't read 7 fucking notes, right? And that's because of our industry, because the guitar industry thinks that we're dumb, right? So it's worked great for me because I was making $200,000 reading music while my friends who are reading tablature are working, at a factory, which is, but that's why I make these courses now, because I can't stand to watch my fellow guitar players not make money as a result of their work, of their hard passion, their work, and all that. Now I'll shut up.
I don't even know where we're talking. You lost your mom, Jamie, at a young age, and then you lost your dad when you were a little older, at 30. I was curious. Those are obviously pretty traumatic things. How do you think, especially losing your mom at a young age, that impacted you musically and personally as you continue to go through life back then?
Those are very interesting questions. The question. My mom was terminally ill almost my whole life. She had a bad blood transfusion when she had a gallbladder operation. In those days, they didn't check the blood. So now they check it for AIDS, they check it for different things, but they did not. And they gave her tainted blood that either came from an alcoholic or something, and it ate away her liver as if she were a drinker. She was not a drinker.
Oh,
so she had,
wow.
it's called cirrhosis of the liver.
Yeah.
It would eat it away. And
holy crap.
She is a very unbelievably unfortunate thing, and she's surely not the only one that had that. But her love of life was unreal, and everybody knew. In my town, I grew up on Long Island, New York. I know you said New York City at the beginning. I mean, I was actually born in a New York City hospital, but I lived on Long Island in Nassau County, and the kids, if they cut themselves or they fell or they needed something, they come to my mother, not their own parents. And this was the kind of woman she was. And we're all proud of our parents most of the times if they were good parents. And she was very special. And I had a deep fear of death because she was she was in a coma 10 times during my childhood. And I had a fear. I read about John Lennon, from the Beatles, who couldn't sleep with the lights off at night. And he and I shared that. I had to have the light on. Darkness meant death. And just to give you a little quick story, my mother wanted me to be able to be comfortable living and not thinking about death. And so we planted a little, for some of you might not know what this is. It's called a mimosa tree. And she said, Jamie, let's plant a mimosa tree together. So we got a twig and we go in the backyard and we spent some time and we planted this thing. And I couldn't sleep, like 2 a.m, and 11, 12 years old. And she said, let's go in the backyard and see how our tree is doing. It's like dark, And I said, okay, Mom, and we go in the backyard, and she sang a song from the Broadway show Carousel called You'll Never Walk Alone. You know that song?
No.
When you walk through a storm, hold your head up high. And she's singing this song to me. It's kind of like a movie, And we're in the dark, just the moonlight, and looking at the tree, and she's showing me how this tree is going to blossom and be a representation of her love for me, and that she doesn't want me to worry about her dying because, and this is the key line, I'm too busy to die. That's what she said. That was a big day. And she held my hand and she said, everything that's here in the dark is also here in the light. And that was, Craig, that was the first night in my entire life that I shut the light off in my room, because it was to prove to my mother that I got her message. And indeed, I sleep in the dark now. But when I'm talking about a light, I'm not talking about a night light. I had a lamp on. I'd sleep I could have been in Kmart sleeping.
Wow.
And so
your mom sounds like what a lovely, sweet woman.
Well, she had this way of communicating, and my dad, as I said, had a day job, and Friday nights we would go to an Italian restaurant we loved, or a Chinese restaurant on Long Island. That's the two big things on Long Island. And she had 104 fever, which is pretty bad. Yeah. It got so bad that the thermometer burst in her. And 2 hours later, my father arrived home from work, and my mother was all dressed. I said, Mom, you going to the hospital? She said, no. She said, it's Friday night. We're going out to dinner. Wow. And this was the kind of amazing influence and inspiration. In fact, if we get to it in this interview today, one of the reasons why I think I survived the problem I had after the earthquake was because of her. And my father taught me about patience and about giving your all. Blue Shield, which was an insurance company, cut us off. She had over $1 million.
Back in the day, that was the cap.
Yeah, that was the cap. So we had over $1 million in care. They cut us off. So my father said, "Don't worry, you guys will always be taken care of." And he was patient and, taking care of my mom. And I don't exactly know how he did it. I know he went to Las Vegas a lot. He was invited to, and then later in life, when I became a teenager, he taught me how to count cards and how to gamble. And he took me we went to Las Vegas. And I remember he never, ever, really rarely ever got angry, right? But I learned something. So one day I made a move with blackjack, which was not what he taught me. And he flipped out. He's standing next to me. He said, "Jamie, this is real money you're playing with. This is not a game," right? And that was when I realized that we were eating off the money he was gambling, learning to gamble. And then later, after he passed away, I found this whole collection of books about how to gamble. Scarney's method, this method, that method.
Wow.
He needed to make the money. We were out of money,
Yeah.
He'd do anything to do this. And my first Les Paul, am I talking too much?
No, man, it's an interesting story. It's only too much when it becomes non-interesting.
Okay. I don't want you to listen. Well, who the hell is this guy? So I wanted a black fretless Wonder Les Paul. I had a Gretsch Anniversary, which was my first electric, and all my friends had, electric guitars. They had a Fender Strat, and they had Les Pauls. I was going to be 13. I grew up Jewish, so that's when you get what's called bar mitzvah. And this is what I wanted for my gift. But Les Pauls at that time were about $500, $600 already, especially the black fretless Wonder, they called it. So I told my father, he asked me what I wanted for my birthday and for my bar mitzvah gift. And I said, well, I want a Les Paul. And full well knowing we were just barely getting by. But, I'm a selfish I don't know why you think I'm a nice guy. I'm the selfish bastard, So I didn't care where he found the money. I just wanted a guitar. Spoiled kid. So he made a deal with me. He said, "Listen, this is fake book. You know what a fake book is?"
Sure. All the songs.
All the songs. And they were illegal, but all musicians had them.
Wait a minute. Fake books were illegal?
Yeah, they're complete because they didn't pay the composers.
Oh, for publishing.
Right. So
I didn't know that. I played saxophone as a kid. I even had a fake book.
Okay, so for the listeners out there that either don't read or don't have it, all the musicians coming up had fake books. And what you do is you bring the book on gigs, and then you could play with anybody. So you get a gig in the park, you get a gig at Carnegie Hall, you get a gig at a wedding. You just open a page 26, and everybody reads the music, and that's the way we were brought up, right? But these were illegal books. And now they have a book called The Real Book, which is legal. They actually paid the composers. But, yeah, most fake books are illegal.
I didn't know that. It's very interesting.
Yeah, big deal. And but it was so – every musician had one. So,
yeah.
Yeah, it was like having a guitar pick, if you So he walks in with book number one. It's called book number one, which had all the hits from the 30s, 40s, 50s. I think it ended in the 50s, early 50s. It was like no rock and roll, and they're all standards. Mm-hmm. He said, "Here's the deal. I want you to learn 150 of these songs.
Oh, my God.
The melody, be able to play the melody of every one of these songs, and be able to play the chords so I can sing them to every one of those songs. And then we're going to perform them in 2 to 3 days for your mother, who was dying. So she said, and if you accomplish that, I will get you a Les Paul.
Wow, that's a lot of skin in the game.
Yeah, a lot of skin in the game. So I start, in the pieces that I know now, but stuff that they would, you're nobody till somebody loves you. All those kind of standards. You're nobody till and even older, like, ain't she sweet? And he like that. Anyway, I got 150 done. And I went in the car with my father. We drove for those of you who've never been in New York, there's a place called Long Island. It's an island, of course. And it juts out into the Atlantic Ocean. That's where I grew up, right? Middle class, lower middle class. And New York City is about 35 minutes away, what they call Manhattan, New York City. And my father had gigs there with his day job. So we drove in the car, and he told me to bring my Gretsch anniversary. And I brought the guitar, and he would sing the entire way. He rehearsed me. Then he'd say, no, when a singer is singing, you don't step on them. You don't play on top of them. So he taught me how to accompany a singer, which also helped me to accompany instrumentalists. I'm going to accompany a saxophone player, whatever. I learned how to put space in my playing, how to be sensitive to the communication of other musicians. And we did this for 3 days. He says, okay, let's go and start playing for mommy. And so we sat by her bedside, and for 3 days, we went through every song on the list. And I was quite proud. This is a pretty deep story, in a way. I mean, my mother was singing along when she could, and it was it had kind of a festive thing. I had accomplished something that was pretty amazing for a 12-year-old, I think.
Yeah.
And that weekend was my bar mitzvah, my 13th birthday. And I wake up, and in the morning there's a guitar case on the couch with a ribbon. I open it up, and I don't want to cry on your show. It's a black Les Paul. My father and mother had pawned their wedding rings so I could get
Holy shit.
Get the guitar because we had no money. And
wow.
Yeah. So but the thing is, my dad, you asked me in the pre-interview also about the making money at this. The week after I got the guitar, he says, we're going to go today and you're going to join the music union. I'm 13 years old.
13.
And I said, what's the music union? I didn't know what the union was, right? So I walk in. This is New York, right? New York is famous for the family, right? So I walk in, and here I walk in. I don't know how my father did this. I walk into the president of the New York Music Union. His name is Vince Rosito. You got the picture, right? He says, this is my son, Jamie. He's going to play for you. So Vince Rosito's there. You might as well have been, with the Gambino brothers, the Gambino family, which is another thing you didn't talk about in my bio, that I was John Gotti's guitar player. You know that, right?
No, I didn't know that. Wasn't in your bio.
Yeah, I don't put it in there for a few reasons.
I wonder why.
Well, it was a positive thing. I thought about putting it in there. But anyway, so I sit down, and I remember I sat down, I played a song called Misty. And Vince Rosito is like there, and he's flipping. He says, how old is your kid? Right in front of me. He says he's 13. He brings out the papers. I became the youngest guitarist in New York to join the union. The next week, we get a call from the union that they need me to play a wedding.
Holy shit.
So now I'm with an organization called Stephen Scott Orchestras, which is the biggest on Long Island. And before you knew it, I was like 14 years old, making $28,000 a year.
Part-time.
Yeah, on the weekends. After I got finished doing my homework for algebra. So it's not like I like looking for the money. It's just like I got paid. I got paid just like the other guys because I was a union musician. They didn't say, "Look, the kid's 13, give him $20."
Yeah. You had to get scale.
So by the time I was 15, I knew that when you play a wedding, you get paid $150. You give me $1 less, I'm gonna stomp around the room, man. Don't F with the 14-year-old. So anyway, I consider all this a blessing. And for those guitar players out there, I love you very much. And you should not devalue yourself. You're working hard. You should get paid. That's the bottom line. I'm sorry if and for those of you who think, well, I do music for fun and passion, that's great too.
Yeah, they're mutually exclusive.
They are.
But it's hard, I think. And I see this on the flip side in the business world where people also devalue them. They love doing it. But that's a mutually exclusive issue from the value that you're providing.
Yes.
For many things.
1,000.
Wow. What a story, man. Wow. Your parents were interesting.
John Gotti is the real story, man. That's that was an education.
What happened? Go ahead.
Well, I got a call from this office I just talked about. They said, we need you to play solo guitar. You're going to play in Little Italy, which is a part of New York City. So I walk in and they put me against the wall in the back with this table next to me. And then I'm introduced to Mr. Gotti, John Gotti Jr. And repertoire, knowing a billion
this
songs.
This is there was the dad, though.
This was the last one.
The youngest one, then.
Yeah, the one who was.
The one who left.
Died in prison.
Okay, no, that one. Okay, well, his son is called John Gotti too, I thought. No?
Yeah, no, but he's like Junior.
Okay, so Juniors. Sammy Davis, Junior.
The one that we all know, the one that kills people.
Yeah.
So John, here's the thing. I wish we had an 8-hour interview. There's a rite of passage I feel that musicians are not following now. What that rite of passage could be were things we talked about a little earlier. Learning from other musicians, learning on the streets, playing in bars, whatever, or a formal education, right? There's all ways to learn. And now we have people with GarageBand that plug their loops in and they're making techno records. And if they have enough cool people on YouTube, they actually can make a living, I'm disappointed that we don't have as many people doing a rite of passage. But part of that rite of passage for me was that 150 songs that I had to learn, right? And that turned into 200 songs and 300 songs where people would call me the jukebox. That was my nickname, jukebox Glaser. Any song. You want Jimi Hendrix? Here. You want Glenn Miller? Here. You want Bach? Okay, whatever. So, but every time you learn a style of music or a piece of song, you learn more, right, Greg? You learn to play a new chord. You learn. So I'm introduced to John Gotti, and like I said, we're against the back wall. You know why we're against the back wall?
Yeah, so nobody walks in, no?
Yeah, so we're guarded by two people. So we're looking at the door. If a guy's going to come in and shoot John, the people that protected him would take the shot.
Yeah.
And in my case, the guy would take the shot for me, or maybe not.
Maybe not. I don't know, Jamie.
I didn't get killed, so
I think we need to keep lower, not so lofty aspirations on this story.
So John says to me, he says, "Hey, Gumba," he says, "Play Mala Femina." So I know that, I learned all these Italian songs, all these Irish songs, all these Jewish songs, all these Mexican songs. So I play it. Okay, he gives me $100. So cool. Then play Volare. So I play that, another $100. Anyway, I'm loving this shit because I'm already getting paid. Nobody's ever given me a tip of $100. I'm 16 years old, right? So I am now flipping out, man. I see that I'm going to be a rich guy. So I go home and I learn every Italian song I can find. I'm buying records at the store, Italian music. I don't know what they're saying, you know. I think John thought it was great that I wasn't Italian and I knew all this music, right? And John Gotti was a wonderful, well, this is horrible. He was a wonderful person to me.
Sure.
He was an amazing family man. Amazing, incredible. And I have a little story that is in tandem with this. Are you sure you don't have a week for this interview? And he protected me. And at one point, right before I was ready, he said, "Where do you want to go to college?" I said, "Well, I plan to go to Berklee College of Music in Boston." He says, "Okay." He says, "I'm going to pay for your education, and I'm going to get you a house in Boston so you're comfortable." He says, "I want to make sure you have a great career." And so I go home to my father. And my father is like, I can't let Gotti do this. You know? He says, because if you don't make it, you're going to end up a heroin dealer, or you'll end up in the cement. So my father drove to New York City with me to his gig. And
oh my God, that's a stressful.
Yeah, it's a little stressful.
Holy shit, I'm stressed listening to this.
He said, "Look, John, we appreciate you so much, and you've been so good to Jamie," and on and on. I don't remember every word. He says, "But look," and this was the killer. My father's smart. I wish I was even a quarter as smart as my dad. He says, "I'm his father. Let me do what a father needs to do for his son." He says, "As much as we appreciate you, and would love to take you up on you taking care of him." And my father said, "Jamie will make us both proud. Don't worry." Right? No pressure on me, right? I get the head of the mafia and my father both on my ass. And John released it. You know, he released it. And then it was a couple of years later, I saw him. I was crying. I watched him being hauled off by the NYPD and then put in jail and eventually die. And he was great. And there were things I saw because of this. Like one time I was playing and there was this black car in front of the restaurant, and the guy's head is like outside the window, right? And I'm playing and I keep noticing and the head doesn't move, right? It's just like this. And so I take a break. I go out and, the guy they used a silencer. They took him out.
Oh.
And, the blood was all over the dashboard, and he's just like this. And because the cops they didn't bug. They didn't come down the street.
Where was this? Downtown?
In Little Italy, in New York.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And
which is not Little Italy anymore. I don't know how long.
What do you mean?
Well, it's like 3 Italian restaurants for tourists.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's
I
not.
was there like 10 years ago.
Yeah, there's not a lot of Italian population.
I mean,
mostly Chinese have moved over from Chinatown and live in there.
Really?
Yeah.
I went, I don't know, 8, 9 years ago maybe, and I took my girlfriend on a tour, and I remember the tour guide had to whisper because he was talking about the gunshots in one of the restaurants that's still there. And he said, this is not something we talk about.
Oh, that was for show, man.
Yeah, it was part of the show because I've been through this shit. Yeah, it's not like that. But later on in California, I was a guitarist for all the trailers for Disney with an amazing composer named Hoppy Hallman III. He's in the who's who of composers. And we did 100-something trailers. Every time a new Disney movie came out, we were the ones doing it. Except the Disney studio was set in a neighborhood in LA that was the gang, the Crips. You ever hear of the Crips?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we're in there. I pull up my car. I have 10 guitars in my car.
That's not very Disney-like.
Well, remember, it's a sound studio. We're not doing a movie. It's just, it's on McCadden.
Still, though,
Yeah, so right off McCadden Street. It's an old, beautiful. I mean, they were charging $400 an hour to record in this studio.
Yeah.
So it's a great studio. Hell, it's big enough for an orchestra and all the rest. So it's just the way the neighborhood grew. And the Crips owned that neighborhood. So I pull up. I have 10 guitars. I remember that clearly because that's what the producer asked for. And this crackhead comes up to my window. And he says to me, hey, man, you got $100. the rate
inflation.
Yeah,
God.
Not the way I grew up.
He said, give me a quarter.
$100. I said, no, man. I said, look, I'm working here. I don't have $100. And all of a sudden, 4 guys from the Crips come. They lift this guy in the air, and they drag him into the bushes. And I swear, Craig and listeners, I don't know what happened to the guy. I'm assuming they beat him up. They didn't kill him, but
no, they probably gave him the 100 and bought him dinner.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So they take this guy, right? And then the 4 Crip guys come back to my window, and I'm thinking, I'm dead.
Yeah.
I got 10 freaking guitars in here. I'm finished. The Crips are going to take me the hell out. And they said, this was off the charts, but it should not have been a surprise. They said to me, Sir, can we help you into the studio? And I was like, what the hell? So I'm not going to say no to the Crips.
Man, that's like a woman asking you, do I look overweight? It's like, there's no right answer there, man.
Yes, exactly. That's a great analogy. So I said, sure. So I opened up the hatchback of the car. I had a Ford Mustang, and these guys, they pick up my guitars like they are the most fragile freaking, like the treasure from God himself. They were so, I mean, we're on Skype so you can see me. They're picking up the handles like dainty and I'm like, what the heck? And they pick, do you want it here, sir? And they put the guitars down. Anyway, the point of the story was, like the mafia gig, is they protect their own. And one of the reasons why they took out, and I learned later, why they took the crackhead out, is he did not belong in their neighborhood. In their neighborhood, they don't sell drugs. In their neighborhood, their wives and their children are.
Interesting.
So they don't have crime in their neighborhood. You bring crime into the Crips neighborhood, you're finished. You're dead. And so that's what was happening. They, like John Gotti with me, he would do anything for me, And indeed, that's the way he was with his wife and with his family. And then when I watched him being taken away in the what do they call those things around the legs? The
shackles?
Shackles. I sat in my house watching the news. I was crying because he was like a grandpa or an uncle, so kind. So it wasn't just $100. I mean, he loaded me with money, but he would get big ziti and did you eat? Did you? I mean, he just like taking care of me like I was his son. I never saw him violent with anybody.
So far, boys and girls, we've covered payola, John Gotti, and the Crips.
This is just like your other interviews.
This is exactly like all my other interviews. It's really weird.
You want to know about the radius of the neck on my guitar?
Holy shit.
I don't have any idea on Everyone Loves Guitar,
Wow. All right, let's switch gears.
Okay, brother.
Talk about your Jean-Luc Ponty gig. Long before Steve Smith became the drummer for Journey, I guess he was a classmate of yours at Berklee, yes?
Yes. No.
Oh, he wasn't. I thought you guys met originally at Berklee.
We met at a bar mitzvah.
Oh, so you both had a gig.
We had a gig, and he played his ass off, and I was playing, and I said, well, I go to Berklee College of Music. He said, well, I go to Berklee College of Music.
Oh.
I said, really? I said, why don't we go there and jam? So we take a room, the two of us. I have an orange OR80, which for those of you who don't know, at least in the old days, it didn't have a master. So that meant you had to turn it up to 47 to get distortion. It was the loudest amp. I had a 412-inch bottom, orange, in the OR80. And Steve Smith, to this day, was the loudest drummer I have ever met in any fashion. I mean, I don't know much about drumsticks, but they looked like 2 tree trunks. And so we went in a practice room, It was we probably could compete with a NASA liftoff.
It was that loud.
It was unbelievable. He crashed the cymbal, and I'd want to cry.
Wow.
It was that loud. But we formed a friendship, and we did this a couple times later, just the two of us, nobody else, guitar and drums. We just jam. And then one day he called and said, look, I'm leaving Berklee to join this jazz guy, Jean-Luc Ponty. He's really big. He's opening for Bonnie Raitt and Renaissance and all these kind of rock bands. And
that's a weird pairing, opening for Bonnie Raitt, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it was until they opened for us.
But even that's a weird, that's just a weird combo. I could see Renaissance sort of, because,
Yeah, but it turned out, for I don't know your listener, your demographics as well as I should, but I do know guitar players, and we played and on tour with Supertramp, and the thing is that the jazz fusion thing that everybody seems to know me about was more about rock and roll with a jazz education. It wasn't that I was a jazz player. So I'm kind of in this weird space because I wanted to be Jimi Hendrix, right? And because I got educated and I learned more about progressive music, whether it was prog or jazz or classical, I was able to use that with these legendary jazz players. So Jean-Luc, he sold 4 million albums. That's more than a lot of rock bands do. And so we were playing, 10,000 people, 20,000 people, with Supertramp, 100,000 people a night. So we were, and the record company was, giving us $100,000 tour support. We had limos everywhere. We were living the rock star lifestyle. Until such time that I recognized that Ozzy Osbourne had cooler girls
than the John-Luc Ponty fans.
Well,
go figure.
At some point, so I went over to Ozzy and I said, "Look, can I?"
Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm positive.
So, like, you were opening for Ozzy?
No. Okay, so Ozzy and I, we were rehearsing in the same place.
Okay,
in Los Angeles. It's called Third Encore. It's a rehearsal hall on Van Noen Street. And Randy Rhoads was there, and I got friendly with Randy and all that stuff. And so I went to Ozzy. I said, "Look, man, the jazz fusion girls, they're nice." I said, I really like your girls better. Would you mind if I told people that I was with you? That's how much I wanted to be with girls at the time. So he said, "Oh no." However, I'm not going to try to emulate his accent. So his crew gave me a bunch of pictures
with you and him.
No, with him, just Ozzy Osbourne that he would sign. We used to do these black and white photo things, and I'd carry him around in clubs and
you give him when you meet Ozzy, chicks, you'd say, "I'm with Ozzy," and you'd hand him a picture.
I'd say I'm with Ozzy's crew. Meanwhile, I just played, for 10,000 people in another place. I had a lot of testosterone in the 80s.
That's great. God bless you.
Yeah.
Okay, so you played with Jean-Luc for a couple of years, and then I think he changed his band around.
Yes, he fired us. He fired Steve Smith. He fired me, and he fired Alan Zavad.
Because he basically was switching. He was just changing everything.
He thought that we were making his band too rock and roll.
Right.
Now, there was the balance of rock and roll, but we were doing stuff like that he was not ready for. I mean, we'd be playing, and I'd do pyrotechniques. I'd like to jump up on the speaker column and do my solo or run into the audience. I mean, shit that was just not happening in the jazz world at all. Funny story about that. We're in Japan. We played our first gig in Tokyo, and the crowd were in suits for the most part, and they were very polite. You could see this on Skype, just, clapping. And we had just played Chile right before, South America, right? And Chile had just gained their independence. So we played in Chile, and we could have been the Beatles.
Yeah.
I mean, we had to be dragged over the audience so they wouldn't rip our clothes off. I mean, that's how deep it got, right? We're the first, Kiss, I think, was the first one, but the second American band to ever be in Chile after they gained their independence. An amazing audience. We had paparazzi following us around. It was just off the charts. Then 2 days later, we're in Japan, and we hear this, and there's no screaming, there's no yelling. Like, we failed, right?
Yeah.
So I decide I'm going to take it upon myself, Mr. Energy, to change this, right? So I get on the guitar, and I am jumping all over the stage, and I get on top of the speakers, and I'm back like this, and I put the guitar behind my head like Hendrix, and I do like anything for attention. Now the crowd goes nuts, right? They're freaking nuts. They went from being like in a hospital waiting room to being like a rock concert. So we get off the stage. Now you have to know Jean-Luc, but he's very passionate about what he does. He says, "What was that?" And I think that's it. I'm fired. Right? I'm done. Freaking done. He says, "That you act like a clown." Some other stuff. Anyway, he was reprimanding me to the point where I really thought I was going to get on a flight. But he's such a smart band leader. So the next morning, all the papers, the Tokyo News, and all they're talking about is how I livened up the crowd and that like this. So Jean-Luc comes to our dressing room, the band's dressing room after. He says, "I need to talk to you." And I'm really scared of him. He says, "I want you to do exactly what you did last." Right? This is Jean-Luc is a freaking genius. I mean, he knows business, he knows marketing, he knows if something works to feed it.
Yeah,
he's great. And yeah, so
he's not he's not willful. He's open to like testing. This works, so let's go with it.
Yeah. He wants.
He's not worried about being right.
Right. That's beautifully said. Yes. So what did you ask me about Lenny White? Oh, so Jean-Luc fired Steve and myself and Alan, and at that point, I met up with Lenny White and had the great honor of playing with him, and it was really a wonderful experience. I learned how to not play like a white person.
I learned how not to play like a white person. Well, let's talk about I want to talk about a few different people. Tell me what you learned, what you learned most from your experience in playing with them. And let's start with Lenny. You said you learned how not to play like a white person.
And I'm glad that you found that funny in a way, but it's true. Now I come from Long Island, New York, which I think that the only negative thing about Long Island, at least when I was growing up, is it's segregated. There was a section of the Jews, there was a section of the African Americans, and we all knew that. You cross over from the town I grew up in, West Hempstead, and the next town was Lakeview, and that's mostly black. And Long Island was kind of like that. I mean, it's the way it was settled. I don't think we were doing that because we didn't like other people. It's just the way it was. And I recognized early on that I loved funk and I loved R&B. And so I was one of the few white people who would go into the other towns, even go to their churches and try to learn church licks.
Which is the best place to learn, actually.
Positively, yeah. Craig. And this was, like I say, this was a kind of rite of passage. And I think they found it cute that I was there singing with them, and I was pretty welcome, to be honest with you, But I also knew that I needed more. I was funkier than the locals, but I wasn't as funky as what I heard on Motown records. So I needed more, and I got my education from this time with Lenny White. And my first rehearsal with Lenny, the band was Donald Blackman, who passed away, unfortunately. Wonderful, wonderful artist and player. Marcus Miller, who was just turning 17 years old at the time. And then Nick Morak, who played guitar with Scritti Politti and a bunch of people. He's wonderful, great guitar player. Of course, Lenny. And we're playing, and Donald looks at me. He says, "Hey, man," and I hardly know the guy. I really hardly know the guy. He says, "You got to stop playing like a hunky." I had never heard that term even. I think I knew what it was, but I was like, What? He says, you playing like a hunky, man. He says, you watch the hi-hat. and so Lenny took it right from there because they know, man. He said, yeah, watch that. And then I teach my students on guitar about what's called subdivision, how to subdivide a beat. So you play it in the groove, as they call it, in the groove. And I learned that the field, you take this is not just a racial or a color thing, but growing up, the kids from Long Island, if they were playing, right? I got sunshine. And then they tried to play a funky line. They go like, every white boy, sorry, white boys, that I am a white boy, played like that. But what I learned was the hi-hats going, taka, 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 and I had to be right in the groove with this. So when I go to play that funk line, it's so 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Now, the people who are not into subdivision and the funk, they play it like this: 2, 3. I hate when people who don't know how to play funk. But what they play, it's just a slop piece of crap. And these people taught that to me. And they changed my life, man. I mean, I got called in LA by Patrick Henderson. It's kind of a funny session. I got called for this. I don't know if you know who I'm talking about.
No, I don't know that name. All
right. Well, anyway, so we get called, and I walk into the studio in Los Angeles. The record, the hell is it called? Oh man. Well, anyway, it's a big studio, and there's a band there. Everybody's African American, and there's like 14 people in the control room. Everybody's African American. When I walk in, and I said, "Well, I'm here for the session." I said, "No, you're at the wrong session, man." I said, "No, I'm looking at Patrick Henderson." He said, "Man, who are you?" And I said, "I'm Jamie Glaser. I was hired by whoever hired me at the time at the record company, whatever." "Oh, you're the guy on it." Anyway, they were all shocked. They said, "You're a white boy. We didn't know you were white," and all this stuff. And I'm so grateful for that experience with Lenny White.
Yeah.
That's far from all he taught me. He changed my way of composing, Lenny. I used to go to his house in Jamaica, New York, and Lenny would be writing a tune, and he'd have you know what an Oberheim synthesizer is?
No, I know the name. I don't know. I've never seen it.
Yeah, it's an old, when we were all coming with Moog synthesizer, and it was the next level. And he would be putting this freaking coolest bass line, like boom, 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 whatever the heck he was doing, right? He said, "That's my song, man. Now put a guitar part on." And I was like, I didn't come from that, right? I came from High Glaser, who said the melody is number one, then you put the harmony, then you put the lyrics. So this was like an earthquake for me, Craig. It's like, who writes a song from the bass line? And so everyone, look, the truth is, for the listeners out there, if you go around life and you think that everybody you come in contact with is there for a reason and is an angel even, then your life can explode with energy. You stop judging. Well, this guy or this girl does this gig at Walmart. She can't teach me anything. But I don't look at the world that way because of my background. I think, I don't know what she knows. Teach me.
So where did you get that from? Because that's a really extremely half full, healthy way of looking at things.
Well, you know what? It's funny, Craig, because it's kind of half full. I think some of that comes from the fact that I don't feel like I'm ever good enough, which is often a musician thing, right? If I'm never good enough and I always have to learn. So I had to work through that for a while in my career. I was immobilized by the fact that I thought I sucked. If we get a chance, this month of talking about my book, there was a point in my life where I took checks, big checks, and threw them out the window on the freeway of California, the 405.
When you say took checks, you mean you got paid for services rendered?
I got paid.
Yeah.
I'd get a play for a half hour, get $300 from Married with Children, and I would take the check and rip it up and throw it out the window. And why I did that was because I felt that I didn't deserve it.
You felt undeserving.
Undeserving. I felt, look, anybody can read music, and I just got paid $300, and my friend is working at the ice cream shop to make money for his children, you know. And so I threw a lot of money out the window, and I'm not proud of it. I was also out of my mind.
Did you self-sabotage after that, then, I would imagine?
Yes.
Yeah,
well,
that's a natural byproduct of feeling undeserving. Because I have felt like that at times in my life earlier.
Have you?
As well. God, yeah.
How did it manifest for you? I don't know. Maybe you don't want to talk about it.
No. How did it manifest? Like, where did it originate?
No, I mean, like, I threw stuff out the window.
Oh, how did it? I just was like not really happy. I was really angry all the time, and I wasn't happy. And I never, I wasn't a half full kind of guy. I was very much a half empty guy looking at the world.
They're kind of, like I say, they're kind of the same in a way, but I felt I didn't know anything, so I could learn from everybody. And then when I realized that these people, or everybody really, is there to guide me in some way, to teach me, my life became explosive. Indeed, after my downfall, after the earthquake, my entire book called Hear the Silence is about the lessons I learned from others. I mean, a couple of people reviewed the book and said it's an autobiography or a biography, and it's not. In fact, indeed, everything but that. It's my story, but it's about everybody who helped me to where I am today, to being one of the. This sounds very egotistical, but I really feel like I'm one of the happiest guys on the planet.
It doesn't sound egotistical. It sounds like a lot of gratitude. Doesn't really sound.
Well, I'm stupid happy.
So let me ask you this though. But where did that? I don't think that is something. I guess you could learn. I mean, I'm just really that attitude to have that at a young age it really impresses the shit out of me, to be honest with you.
Well, if you were a psychiatrist, and I know you enough now to know that how intuitive you are, how smart you are, maybe you should be my psychiatrist.
Good Lord, if I'm your psychiatrist, you're fucking in trouble.
What would you say? One of the reasons why do people become entertainers? Well, there are a lot of reasons, right? But one of the major ones that you'll hear over and over is they crave attention.
Sure.
Okay? And there is nobody on this planet that craves more attention than me. I told you before the interview, I had to answer the phone with my ex-wife. My nickname with her is Velcro, because I just need her all the time. Right? The thing is that I need a lot of attention, but knowing that I am able to do that in a kind way, I didn't always, right? And needing attention meant that I would love my teachers. So I was the teacher's pet at Berklee. My first guitar teacher's name was Joe Breeze. I started at 9 years old, 8.5. He was the guitarist on the Ed Sullivan Show. And he influenced everything. He also was a bass player. So he is exactly why I wanted to please him. Yeah. So at 9 and 10 years old, I wanted to be just like him. My father was a lyricist. I became a lyricist. I always want to please authority. I always wanted to please teachers. So I think that part is one of the reasons why I went ahead and realized that everybody else had something to teach me. I think that I did it first selfishly so people would like me. It's only now that I'm mature that I realize that these were, and I don't know if you believe in a higher power or God or universe or whatever, but I believe that this was more than anything that I think I like about myself is that I know I don't know anything. And I'm
No,
proud of it.
But to have that optimism, I think it leads to a much healthier, less stressful, and just you're more well received. And I think it leads to a life where that's exactly what happens. You know, if you go around thinking things are negative, it pretty much going to be negative. If you go around thinking, oh, this is great, I have to, I wonder why I met this person. Maybe they'll teach me something. Then, not every time, but many times you'll learn something, and I think that's a great attitude, man. And I have that attitude, but I got it so late in life, but it sounds like you had it much younger, and it's just,
I had it
healthy.
Earlier, but
yeah.
But there, like I said, the other side of that is that desire to learn from others also led to feeling that I was less than I was.
Yeah.
So we had that element, and interesting. I don't know if it's interesting, but so we're doing. I don't know if you're aware of this or your listeners are aware of this. Surely your European listeners will be aware. But when they have jazz festivals, or what they call jazz festivals in Europe, it's a wonderful thing. People go and they get on trains and they follow a lot of people follow. So you can see the same audience person in London and they're in Switzerland, and they spend the summer hiking and going to the shows. But one of the other interesting things about the jazz festivals is that they'll hire Chick Corea and the opening act will be Ron Wood, or the jazz festival to them. It just means it's a festival.
It's music. Yeah.
It's music.
Well, that's what they would have, like Montreux, Gary Moore would be there.
Yes.
I've always, I haven't heard it articulated like that, but I've seen it.
Ron Wood, but Bo Diddley, and then Chick Corea. I mean, it was just like nuts. And one day I find out that the two opening acts besides Ron Wood, who I'm not really worried about, is, John McLaughlin, my orchestra, he had his whatever band he had, and Al DiMeola in another. And this was one of those moments where this positive attitude about learning from others and all didn't work so well. So I'm completely, utterly immobilized. For one thing, John McLaughlin is the number one person that inspired me to be a jazz fusion person. Or fusion. I don't like the word jazz. Fusion player. Rock, jazz.
Some guys don't like the F word. Some guys don't like the J word. It's very funny.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. So John McLaughlin, who I don't know, like I said, I'm not a licks player, so I didn't learn licks, but I learned through osmosis kind of what he did and like that, right? And then Al DiMeola was already very famous. We both had Berklee together. He's known for his speed, right? Especially back then. And then there's me with Ponty. And I completely shut down. And I walked into Ponty's dressing room. This is how out it gets. And I said, Jean-Luc, I am so sorry, man. I can't play. He said, what do you mean? Are you sick?
Was this after the earthquake thing?
No, it's before.
Okay.
I can't play. What, are you sick? I said, no, I just can't play. So what's the matter? He said, we have a show. I said, well, you have John McLaughlin playing before us. I said that was my introduction to progressive music, and Al DiMeola and I went to school together, but he's very famous and he's faster than I am. And I started to talk like Ponty was my dad, like fucking whining. And Jean-Luc, he says, come over here. I don't, it's just very unusual for him to say that. Come over here. And he takes me and he twirls me around in front of his dressing room mirror. And he says, look in the mirror. And look. He said, who is that? Did you see? I said, well, that's me. He said, And you know what? I could have hired John McLaughlin. I could have hired Al DiMeola. Anybody would be happy to play with me. You're my guitar player. Now let's go out there and do a great job. This was a moment.
That's a coach, man. That's the head of the Cowboys, man.
That's the head of the Cowboys.
Yeah, man.
And this is, I mean, there's nobody on earth that, I mean, not just musically. I think that Jean-Luc Ponty is maybe the greatest, aside from my father, the greatest influence and inspiration I've ever had. And I was going to say, give your listeners an exercise.
Yeah, man, go ahead.
So, I actually, believe it or not, I learned this by watching Deepak Chopra and Oprah Winfrey, of all people. But they had suggested a thing called the Grateful Rock. And a Grateful Rock, and I've been teaching meditation since 1977, but transcendental meditation I learned in exchange for guitar lessons, and from a master. And
hold on a second. If you smoke weed, this is the time to fire up a joint. I'm thinking.
Yeah, no, this is it. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, guys.
Take a pause and go get your weed, and hit pause and then come back.
and anybody smoking weed, I'm going to do this for you. Here we go. Hello, Craig Garber and Jamie. This is the interview.
Wow, that is so cool, man.
Sorry, it's tuned weird.
All hell is breaking loose now. This is just fucking falling apart here.
It's the nutty hour. So in meditation, they teach you a thing called an anchor, where you put your positive thoughts somewhere where you can grab them later. And one of the things that I learned early on in the late 70s was to clench my fist and put it's a bit of self-hypnosis also. They use this. You put all those positive things in that place. And then when you need them, your mind will use that place that you put them, and be able to grab that positivity or whatever you need, confidence, whatever. And I saw years later with Deepak Chopra and Oprah, they talked about the Grateful Rock, which is really the same thing. You get a pebble from your driveway, the street, whatever, and you put your positive thoughts, your wishes, your dreams, your love, your whatever into this rock. You put it in your pants pocket and you walk around all day. And when you need it, you can take it out. And then at night, you put it in your dresser or on top of your dresser or wherever you keep your most valuable possessions. And it's always with you. And the Grateful Rock was an extension of what I had learned, but I took it a little step further, and I thought that I could attach positivity to anything. Now, yes, it's tough to think that a little child, a 1-year-old, has cancer, or all these horrible, tragic things that happen to us, people dying, fire. I mean, all the tragedies. But there's a way to heal some by attaching positivity. And when we took a break in the interview, it's a little nutty, but I went to the restroom, I went to the bathroom, and I thought, Craig and I are very lucky. This is how out it gets, right? And you know why I thought that?
Waiting for the punchline.
Yes, it's not a punchline. I thought we're both our age, and neither one of us have prostate issues. We've been on an interview for 2.5 hours already, plus the time before, and nobody had to urinate, right? But even if we did, we held it. So, and that's the kind of life I actually lead. I will take the smallest crap, my toothpaste, and say, I have teeth. I mean, and living in this way. Now, that can backfire on you, or backfire on me. I don't know about you. Also, if you haven't noticed, I have no problem not shutting up. So I was on a bus with the band Manhattan Transfer. You've heard of them, right?
Yeah, of course.
And I'm from New York, and we're going to play Carnegie Hall. And Carnegie Hall is one of my favorite gigs ever because Carnegie Hall is Carnegie Hall. It was one of these times where I felt I achieved something, that the universe had given me something amazing that others couldn't say. that I could put on my scorecard, that could fulfill, that I worked and I got a result. Same things we talked about a bit earlier in the interview. And there's a place called Lefrak City. It's in Queens.
Yeah.
And in these buildings, which are a bunch of high-rise apartment buildings, I think that there are 300 to 500 tenants in each building. And I'm in the back of the bus, the Manhattan Transfer. And I am overwhelmed with everything joyous. And I start up. And I said, I remember like it was yesterday. I say, guys, look at how many people are in Lefrak City. And I am the guitar player playing at Carnegie Hall. There has to be 1,000 guitar players in Queens. But I'm the one who gets the honor of playing with you guys. And so I turn around. True story. And Larry Klimas, wonderful sax player, he plays with Neil Diamond now, but he's on 1 billion records. He says, why don't you effing shut the F up? He says, we are so tired of your positivity. And he says, lie down. And he's like, what do you mean lie down? So I said, I told you, lie down. So, we're all friends. So I lay down on the bus bottom, and every musician gets up and they sit on me. They shut me up, right? So the positivity thing can get a little stupid. But I have no problem with being positive. I'd rather it be that way.
Wow. I just think that attitude you have about everybody's there to teach me is a very healthy way of not judging and just nice way to go through life.
I have very little logic, I guess. When I saw the shrink, he told me I'm unusual. He actually told me, you need to get married, have a girlfriend, have a partner, somebody. He says, because you will never be normal, right? Because you're more, he said, I've never seen this. He said, if I had to say, you're 90% right-brained. And it's interesting because my new album, which I'm not finished with yet, but will come out next couple of months, is called Music from the Right Hemisphere, which came actually from my seeing the shrink. But he made me mad because, right, Craig, you know me pretty well. Listeners know me now. This pissed me off because nobody tells me I can't do something. So I said, okay, then you teach me how to be normal. And for the rest of the year, Jerry Seinfeld and Jonathan Wolff, the composer, paid for my hour therapies with the head of the California Mental Association, mental illness, or mental, whatever they call it, mental health organization. And he taught me how to be normal. He said a normal person would do this. A normal person. And the first exercise he gave me was very interesting. He said, I'm going to send you out to lunch. What are you going to eat? Well, at that time, I was obsessed with pizza. I still am. I'm a Long Island boy.
Man, pizza's so good.
Right. And so he says, you're going to go out to eat pizza. What did you have yesterday? Now, I was broke. I actually worked out a deal with the pizza place near my home to front me pizza like a drug. And they'd front me the pizza till I got my paycheck. Then I would pay them.
Right? That's a normal thing for local
Yeah, but I mean, I would actually use the word front. I was never like a drug user. Like, you front me a couple of slices, man, pretty innocent life, I guess. So I said, pizza. He said, look. And then anyway, he sat me down. He said, an adult would not do that. An adult, a normal adult, would eat a balanced diet. He said, you are going to remain ill and depressed and blah, 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 blah until you start having some nutrition. So I want you to learn what to eat. He sent me out and I had to have a salad and I had to have a sandwich with protein and I couldn't drink a Coca-Cola. I had to have some. And that started my healing. He was the greatest angel I ever had, because he didn't give me this Freudian bullshit of, how did you grow up? Your mother died when you were young. This is what it's going to take to be a success. I said to him, look, he said, what do you want to do in life? I said, well, Dr. Elpers, I want to be Mother Teresa. I want to be Mahatma Gandhi. I want to save the world. And he said, okay, he says, let's sit down. He said, how the hell are you going to save the world when you're using the electricity from the neighbor because you can't afford electricity? He said, you can't give away what you don't have. And so I said, teach me to learn to have. And that's another reason why I don't mind making money either, because of these things. He sat me down with a checkbook. Because what I used to do was I do a gig. I did a McDonald's gig. In the pre-interview, you asked me something about my favorite or breakthrough moments and sessions or playing, and it was a McDonald's commercial during the Olympics. So in the union, they pay you half of your union scale for every instrument a producer requests, including your pedal board. So union scale at that time was $279 for 3 hours. $297 for 3 hours. So figure that for every guitar, it's half of that, which is whatever that turns into, right? 140 something. Mm-hmm. The producer says we want 9 guitars. I gave all the producers the list of what I owned: a Telecaster, a Stratocaster, a Ibanez, a acoustic, a nylon string, blah 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 blah, and on my pedal board. And they pay you half for the pedal board. Plus, they pay a company to carry your stuff, which is called cartage. So I walk into a McDonald's commercial, and I have all my guitars laid out by the guy who carries my guitars. I walk in the studio, and I said, well, nice to meet you, and may I have the chart, the music chart? And he said, well, there's no chart. So now I'm flipping. Right? He says, just watch the video and then create something. So here's a video of McDonald's. They show a diver, it's at the Olympics. Show a diver jump off the diving board and into the water. And there's the McDonald's icon and some other crap. And I play I was already writing music for jingles. So I said, what's your demographics? Who are you trying to get to? They said, well, we're going to do a few. We're going to do for some older adults. Give us, I said, what are your favorite songs? The guy says, well, I like Jesse's Girl. Yeah. So I went in, and, like I do for TV work now, and I wrote that backwards. So it's, and that's how I make my money, right? That's how I write the music for Super Bowl.
That's so funny.
He says, they're all amazed I can write a song. The people that don't know how this is done, they think I'm some Einstein, and all I'm doing is using the palette of colors, So I do a bunch of these. They go, no, that's not what we want. Just follow the diver, Jamie. Follow the diver. So I just kidding around. I take the guitar with the whammy bar, and as it floated, got into the water, I went, a dive bomb. And these people, if they had just discovered the moon, they were fucking jumping up and down. Like these grown people were jumping up and down. We found the secret, right? So I like looking at these people all festive, and I just played a dive bomb. I said, okay, so what do we do? That's it. It's a wrap. And anyway, so I got paid for that one note $1,309. $1,309. And it's one of my greatest memories.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's just like being, be positive, give people what they want. This is a wonderful, wonderful show that you do. And I'm more concerned that I'm not feeding your audience with stuff that they want to know as much as I could. So steer me. So I do.
No, everything's good, man.
Okay.
Everything's good. I don't know where to go. I'm like overwhelmed with all this, the intel. I mean, you can't say you haven't like been around the block or lived a full life here, man. Let me ask. I do have a couple of questions. Looking back, what advice would you have liked to get 20 years ago, 25, 30 years ago even, that you think would have helped you, assuming you were willing to listen?
Yeah. I think that looking back, somebody would have taught me that my impression of what money was and wealth was wrong. And there was one moment in my life that messed me up that way. So my mother, as we spoke about, I don't know how much of the interview will be edited or whatever, but my mother was terminally ill, and my father sat me down and he said, Jamie, I want you to promise me that you will have fuck you money. That's what he called it. And I said, what's fuck you money? And he said, well, that's savings. You need to save your money. He said, and he was very positive. He said, you're going to make a lot of money at what you do. He said, and your friends, the people you're watching on TV, your Jimi Hendrix people, they're dead. They took drugs. I want you to promise me you're not going to take drugs. I want you to promise me you're not going to waste your money, that you're going to do good with your money, that you're going to be charitable and take care of people and animals, which all I fulfilled. I'm fulfilling. I'm trying to continue to fulfill. And the night before my mother died, I hadn't been in a chapel or a church or a synagogue or anything. I refused to pray. And I decided that, well, she's going to die, so I need to talk to God and give it one shot. So for the first time in 2 years, I went into the chapel of the hospital, and I sat there and I prayed to God. I said, please let my mother live, take the pain away, and blah, 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 and on and on and on. And I felt kind of good, you know. I go home, I'm driven home to Long Island, and 4 hours later, my father walks in the door and says, this. He says, it's over.
Wow.
And I said, what? He said, Mom is gone. It's gone. And so he and my brother Randy and myself were in a circle just hugging each other like the saddest movie you would ever watch. And the next morning, I went over to my father and I said, what's my mother's, how did I say it? I want to say it exactly. What's my mother's fuck you money going to do for her now? I was so angry, Craig.
Of course.
And that permeated my life for the next 20 years. I refused to save money. So if I got a gig, you know, making $1,000 a day or $500, it doesn't matter if I made a penny, right? I spent it immediately. So yes, my friends would go out and they would go and they'd buy cocaine or they'd do this as the 80s, right? And I refused to do that. So, and I'm not telling you I'm an angel. I've tried stuff, but I wasn't in that world.
Yeah, that wasn't your thing.
That wasn't my thing.
So you attached like that the money issue to your mom dying.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I did where's that savings? So I said, look, if she's dying at 14 with her savings and all that crap, and she would spend her last 2 years in a hospital, I am not going to do that. So what I did, which I regret now, which is your question, is I would make a check and I'd go to Los Angeles airport many times, more times than you would want to know. And I would say, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I haven't been to Tahiti this week. I'll go. No suitcase, no preparation, no 14 days in advance. Here's the cash. Take me to Tahiti. I want to go to Virginia Beach. I lived in LA. I went to Key West every January.
But that's not actually that's not.
Yeah, but you know what? When it came to buying a house, I realized, here I was a guy who was, a lot of musicians can't say they were making between $100,000 and $200,000 to play, and I had $4,000 in the bank because I spent every penny. So now I get to be 50 years old, and I have my dear friends who did exactly what I was, not the bad stuff. They made the same kind of money, studio musicians, composers, whatever. They have big houses, in Los Angeles. They have swimming pools. They have Porsches. They have beautiful families with children. And now I'm jealous of everybody. And there's a part of me that is. I don't have real children, that I know about. And I regret that my first wife and I decided to abort the children that we had. And that's another big regret in my life. Big. And we just now, 30 years later, talked about it, finally.
Did that give you like a little closure on it?
It did, a little. She didn't like kids, really. Maybe because we were playing 150 bar mitzvahs a year with 13-year-old kids throwing toilet paper at us. And both of us were Berklee College of Music graduates, and she went on to write some hit songs and to play guitar on a show Falcon Crest and Tracy Ullman show. And we were about our careers. And that's why our marriage failed as well.
Yeah. That's pretty common with a lot of musicians I speak with.
I regret that. I would never do that again. My relationship with you, Craig, or anybody is way more important than anything I could ever do. Because I can go to, I can go to my grave with my guitar and mean nothing. But if I go with friendship,
memories,
yeah. If one day you're in need of something and I can be there for you, then I feel fulfilled. So it's a bit selfish too, because I get fulfilled by helping others. That's all.
Man, you're a tough critic, aren't you?
Yeah, I guess.
You're beating yourself up for thinking good things. Oh, shit. Holy shit. You're tough. It's not tough dealing with you. It's tough being you. Oh, my God. Holy shit.
But it's fun because look, my first teacher taught me how to be a, quote, performer.
Yeah.
And they said, this is the number one thing. When you're playing on stage, the people in the back of the hall or in the bleachers or in the balconies, they don't know that you cannot see them. So the light's there. You can see maybe 8 rows, 10 rows. It depends on the theater. But people do not know.
Yeah.
Can't see you. Make believe you can see them. Go outward instead of inward. And every single performer that I admire most plays that way. They play outward and not inward. It's not look at me. It's my fucking solo. And that's one of the reasons why, and you think maybe it's because I'm in my 60s, that the fact that there are 5 billion guitar players on YouTube, to me, that all sound the same, exactly the same. Everyone is like, they learned some Steve Vai licks on Satriani, and now they all shred the same shit over and over with no melody, with no thing. Everybody on Instagram that sends me a video of their playing, it's like, well, I just closed my eyes. It was just like the last guy who listened to. Now, we've got 4 zillion Guthrie Govan sound alikes. And I get sick of it. I'd like to hear a melody. Talk to me with music, It's not to say don't play fast. When I was 18, I wanted to play fast too, But, and I have respect for technique.
Sure.
I watched some of these. People, since I'm like the social media king, I get stuff sent to me. My timeline is closed, but that doesn't stop people from sending me their shit all day long from morning to night.
Really?
Look, I just wrote this song. Oh, man. I have a team, so we're between 100 and 300 messages a day
of shit people send you.
MP3s. This is my new album. This is fucking, can I have an address? Let me see. And I said, look, I can't do anything for you. You know, if I can help you with social media, I'll do it, but I can't get you to be famous, you know. But that's why Spotify and Pandora and all the rest can rip musicians off, because musicians just want the freaking attention. They don't understand that one day they're going to actually have to pay the heating bill, you know.
Yeah, that is.
Thanks for listening.
Oh man.
What did you ask me?
It doesn't matter.
It does matter. It does matter.
No, you answered it.
I hate people on a soapbox. So I went there about 4 times during this.
I asked you about what advice would you give yourself, and you answered it about you would have, you know, a different outlook on money. But I don't. Yeah, you know, I don't. Yeah, I mean, for whatever it's worth, because I'm definitely not qualified to be anybody's fucking therapist. But you probably should forgive yourself, man, because you know you had like a specific trauma that was a pretty, you know, difficult thing, and you know, you just attached something to it. It's not like you went and like killed somebody or.
No, but you know, you said that I'm hard on myself. I see those traumas 2 ways. One is exactly what you're saying, and I appreciate it, and I appreciate your feelings on it. And the other one is I see them as what other people would use as excuses. So
I get that.
I was sick, so I can't do this. My mother died, so I can't be this. I lived in the ghetto, so I can't be rich. You know what? The thing is, Craig and listeners, I've seen people in all those conditions make it. And I don't know your background, but if your parents were amazing or they weren't, you mentioned in a pre-interview you had some instances.
They were far from amazing.
Right? Far from amazing, but look at you now. You are world famous.
I don't
you
know.
You are one of the nicest men. You are, you know, a marketing genius. I mean, all this freaking stuff, right?
You're delusional now.
Attracts me to you. I've been on Skype with you for 20 hours, and I could go for another 2 days.
No, but listen, let's say you're correct in all those things. Let's say it is an excuse, right? Let's say you're correct.
Yeah.
You still got to like let it go, man, and forgive yourself because there's no good. Like, okay, you know, it is a choice at this point. You could say, okay, I'm going to beat myself up for it because I was flawed and I made an excuse, or I fucked up, or you know, I did the best I could at the time. I mean, God, everybody, I can't tell you how much shit I fucked up. I mean, you got, you know, and I don't think about, don't think about that. It bothers me periodically for shit that I did, but I mean, like I've let it go because, like, you know, I hope I learn from mistakes, and I just, it's not, it's selfish in a way. I don't want to deal with stress. So I'm like, you know, it's a path of least stress to, like, you know, say, okay, I'm willing to forgive myself. And, you know, I make mistakes. I mean, it happens.
And I'll be honest with you. I mean, if this were you and me going out, you know how guys don't really talk. I mean, guys, they don't do interviews with each other. They say, how was your day? Good. That's the end of the conversation, right? That's the way. Now, you and I have been talking for a couple hours. If this were a traditional interview where it wasn't your amazing vision, where you let the interview, the person you're interviewing kind of be them, right? They wouldn't get this from me. Like that. Like I wouldn't be telling people that I regret that I, you know, blew my money in Tahiti. I would rather, I think that the showman part would rather that someone go, well, Glaser's not a household name, man, but he can buy a house. You know, I mean, the facade.
I could beat you up about not being Jimi Hendrix if you prefer.
You know,
like the guy last week.
It's about where you come from. You know the Grammys, right?
Sure, yeah.
So
I'll be honest with you. I don't even watch television. I'm like a fucking, I mean, like I know they exist. I know there's awards. Do I watch them? No. I'm not that guy. I don't know what the hell I do with my time.
Well, I mean, it's the adventure. The adventure makes up your life, about forgiving yourself and all that stuff. So I'm doing the Grammys. I'm in the orchestra. I used to do the SAG Awards every year. and I got an opportunity to do the Grammys. It was very exciting for me because I wanted to marry Madonna. And I just liked, after Like a Virgin, I thought, I mean, I was like a groupie, like between her and Joan Jett and Britney Spears. Those are my three, right? Joan Jett didn't want me because she's a lesbian, and neither did Sheila E., by the way. So I'm giving too much information.
Turned down by Joan Jett and Sheila E. on top of everything else.
Yeah, Britney Spears. So I get the call. It says, you know, if they can't use the track for Like a Virgin because CBS or whatever the network was at the time, they have to pay the licensing.
Sure.
So they'd have the live band play with her. So my band, which was outside of the orchestra, got called to play behind Madonna.
Great.
So I got like my dream, right? I get to meet her. She talks to me. I'm the guitar player. It's like fire. And I get to play her song. This was like one of the biggest moments ever, but that's not the point of this story. So the producer says to me, or one of the associate producers, "Hey, Jamie, do you have a girlfriend?" And it's like, well, not at the moment. I just broke up or whatever the hell I was saying. Said, okay, we'll arrange something. And I like, what do you mean? He said, well, when the band walks on, even though you're not on the red carpet, the camera will be on the stage door. And it's not cool. This is the 80s in Hollywood. It's not cool for the guitar player not to have a girl on his side.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Wow,
I mean,
that's a lot of thinking there, man.
It's a lot of thinking.
Holy shit.
So I said, well, okay. You know? So anyway, I show up, and this girl, this model they got for me, man, this was like, I mean, at least this was like Playboy times 4 billion. I had never been with a woman that, you know, like most of us have never. I mean, I played at the Playboy Mansion later with Hef, and then I got to know more women like this. I didn't get to know them well, by the way. They kept us away from the women, but I just, you know, you don't see them at Walmart. So I just had never been. And plus, I'm in the groove in Hollywood. I'm part of Hollywood. So, you know, I'm playing solo guitar at Magic Johnson's house and OJ's house and doing this every day, something like big deal, right? So this woman's there. And of course, I think this is the greatest night in my whole life. I am going to walk in front of the Grammy cameras to the backstage with her, and then afterwards, blah, blah, blah.
Afterwards, she's going to go home with you.
Correct.
And rock your world.
After all, I'm in Hollywood. I'm the guitarist. It's the Grammys. Blah. Anyway, we walk in, and the minute the stage door thing happens, she's gone. She is complete, like in the mist. In fact, I don't even remember it at this point, 30 years later, if she even said goodbye. I mean, she's just like, my memory is that she disappeared as soon as the cameras were off, right? But the point of this is, like, I don't beat myself up because, you know, it didn't happen or because I didn't have a girlfriend. But the game, if, you know, there is a game in every business, right?
Yeah.
There's a gameplay and a game. And so I will beat myself up for not being as Jimi Hendrix because I see that was a possibility I missed. I didn't play that game. I played the game that I wanted to learn how to read music and make money and do that. But I always wonder, would I have been fulfilled if I were adored like Jimi Hendrix? I wonder if my journey, you know, I'm very happy to be writing music for Super Bowl without my name on anything because it pays $175 a minute in every market, right? So I had 30 seconds in the last Super Bowl and got a $2,000 check. But would I be more happy when I was in my 20s having girls lining up in a hotel like they did for my other musicians I worked for? I don't know. I'm not beating myself up for it. It's kind of a wondering thing.
Yeah.
You know?
A buddy of mine one of my closest friends one time told me I was going through a bad patch, and he said, Craig, don't look in the rear view mirror. He goes, there's nothing to be gained by doing that. And I guess I was very ready to hear that. And I was like, you know what, Chris, thanks, man. Thank you so much. I'm done. And it was like I fucking switched it off, man. And
don't you see, that was your angel, man. That's what I was talking about.
Yeah, that was my angel. Yeah. And he's been an angel. He's been an angel of mine on many things like that. And I think I've maybe been an angel for him in a couple of situations, which is great.
I bet you have.
Yeah.
But those angels are that's what I say. And when I wrote the book, Hear the Silence, that was indeed do you have the book?
I do not.
What's wrong with that?
That's what you should feel beat yourself up at.
Yeah, now I'm a fucking.
How the hell can you not have me have that book? God. After all we've been through together, my Lord.
I really do. This is going to be I'm going to have to go to therapy.
I'm going to have to go to therapy after this. Are you fucking kidding me? I don't know what happened, but I need help.
You should just be glad that when you do Terry Wallman, it'll be a half-hour interview because you'll need the vacation after this fucking thing. I can't wait for you to edit this. It'll be like 4 words.
No, there's no editing. We don't do much editing here. It's not like. All right. Let's talk about some totally switch gears. For 10 minutes. Then let's actually talk about guitars.
Oh my God.
Oddly enough, on the Everyone Loves Guitar show. What man? You've got such a nice collection. I've seen you play so many guitars. Like, what historically has been your go-to guitar, and what's your go-to guitar now?
Okay, so the go-to guitar is the white Ibanez that nobody can see but you.
Yeah, man. So it looks like you got 2 humbuckers on the neck of the bridge, and then is it a single coil in the middle or something, or a small P90?
Well, this is going to blow your mind, I think, right? And the listeners. First of all, listeners out there, you wonderful people, I am very much not a gearhead. When I play a guitar, I try to find a spiritual connection. I know that sounds very esoteric.
That sounds totally normal.
There's something about it. When I first met Craig, we talked about his Les Paul having a large neck, and that's completely understandable. And he knows a lot more about radius and all this stuff. I just go for a feeling. Now, this white guitar, which you might put in the video just at some point.
Can you take it down so I could get it? Is that all right? I don't. If it's not a problem, if it's not a pain.
I don't have anything to plug it into.
No, I just want to see it up close so I could maybe describe it. Okay, so it's an Ibanez white. Looks like basically Strat. It looks It's got is that a Floyd?
It is a Floyd.
A Floyd. It's got a 2 volume switch, and then no volume and a tone maybe, but it's got a 5-way, and then it's got 3 separate. It's basically like if you went on the rocket ship. And that's what the fucking console, and that's what the guitar looks like.
Each one of these has 3, of course. 3 positions. 3 positions. 3 positions.
What do those switches do? So
this is the bridge pickup, right?
Yeah.
So this would be that side of the humbucker.
Oh, okay.
So I get 2 single coils out of 1 humbucker.
Gotcha.
This would be both, like a traditional humbucker.
Yep.
And this would be that part of the humbucker. So
okay.
They anchored that. Then so that's the same for everything. I'm not sure how they did this, just coil cutters, but even he had the single coil cut. So it's a quarter coil. It's just a whole other thing. And then the back is the same.
Is that like a Lawler pickup?
Okay, this is an Allen Holsworth humbucker.
Okay.
And this is a Hot Rail.
Okay, Seymour Duncan.
Hot Rail, and then this is DiMarzio, some shit. And then we have a 5-position switch, like a Strat. Then on this, we have a push-pull. So when I'm in that position, if I'm anywhere on the guitar, bass, 4th position, in the 5-position switch.
Mm-hmm.
3, whenever I press it down, it takes me to the lead pickup.
Gotcha.
Bypasses everything. So I could be playing funk or country western or country or reggae, and as soon as I need a solo, I just press down. I'm right here on the humbucker.
Very cool. See, I couldn't play a guitar like that. To me, that's literally like I'd be so overwhelmed. I mean,
wait till we get to the Gelvin.
Yeah.
Then this one, you pull up. That's a coil cutter. Makes everything single coil. So now this is a very interesting guitar to me. So
that's always how long have you had that guitar?
Since 1980.
Oh wow, that looks great. You take good care of it, or is it gotten redone or something?
No, it's white, doesn't show it.
Yeah,
looks great. So I said, so here I am. I'm doing it. You guys in the audience can look this up. It's called The Gift of Time. It's a video for Jean-Luc Ponty, and I have a guitar that I got in Japan for $250. It's an Aria. Oh
yeah.
Okay, I don't know even. And they didn't make it in America, and they never made it in America. And you can see that aria on a Chick Corea video on YouTube that I do. And I brought the aria to the Gift of Time video place, and because that's what I was using. And to my dismay, or to their dismay, they used a blue screen. Not a green screen, but a blue screen.
What does that mean?
That means that when I played the guitar, it disappeared.
Oh.
Just like a green screen. So I was playing this blue guitar, and they were seeing my hands and no instrument.
Because it was the same color.
Right.
Yeah, that's too bad.
So the director of the video said, "Don't you have another guitar?" I said, "Well, being the ego tripper, this is my guitar. This is what I'm using, I was an Ibanez endorser. I was actually, by the way, it might be interesting to you maybe, or to the people out there. I was the first American endorser for Ibanez guitars ever.
Oh, that is interesting. That's pretty cool.
I'll explain how that happened. It's probably why I'm applauding that Gibson's going bankrupt. I'll tell you that. Would you be interested in that little story?
Yeah, man.
All right. So anyway, I was in North Hollywood, and I called Ibanez. It's on Case Street there. And I already had kind of an endorsement, but it was loose. And I called them up, and I said, "Look, I'm in trouble. Do you have a guitar that's not blue that I can borrow?" And they said, "Well, hold on." And then Jimmy Buffett, the guy who wrote Margaritaville?
Sure. Yeah, of course. I'm in Florida, man. He's a hero down here.
He gets on the phone. He says, "Look, man," he says, I got a white guitar. You want to borrow it?" So I said, "Yeah, thanks." So
that's kind of random that Jimmy Buffett gets on the phone, no?
But at that time, it had two crappy Ibanez pickups that they were putting on Roadsters, or whatever the hell those guitars are called. No Floyd, and none of those buttons. So I called this guy who I heard was like working at Boeing. His name is Haik Babayan. He had a little guitar repair place in Studio City, California. Because at that time I was using the guy, you probably know all these people, Norik Renson guitars.
Don't know.
He's Loggins and Messina's guitar tech.
Gotcha.
And he's great. So Norik was doing all my shit, but everybody else was going to Valley Arts and all these places in LA, but I like these guys. So Haik says, "Well, what do you want on the guitar?" I said, "Well, I want this, I want that, because I got to do studio work. I got to go to a solo right away. Okay, I'll build that. You want to do this? Okay, I'll do that. What pickups do you want?" I said, "Well, I really like Holsworth." "Okay, we'll get a Holsworth pickup." And then lastly, but not leastly, I said, "I need more balls because my Ibanez EQ has a preamp in it." He says, "Well, what kind of preamp do you want?" He says, "I'll leave it to me." So he put what's called a Demeter preamp in there. So there's a preamp in there. So it's active. There's a battery and all that shit. And I love this guitar. It's wonderful, wonderful guitar.
Do you have like an operating permit to run that thing or something?
Wait. The second greatest guitar is this one, which you've seen, I'm sure, a lot if you've watched me at all.
Yeah.
This is the Gelvin. Now, I don't want to.
That's it's like a chocolate chip mint color, sort of. Is that ebony fretboard?
It's green. I don't know what it shows up there. It's green. But the things that I did not know about this, what the hell happened here? The thing I did not know about this, there's a problem here.
So let me just describe it. It's sort of looks like an Ernie Ball Music Man, a little bit, with the like a Strat-ish, but it's a kind of, and on my screen it looks mint green, but Jamie said it's green. It's got about 9 pickups, I think, in a Floyd. Is that a rosewood or ebony neck fretboard? It looks really pretty.
It's ebony.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Black back, nice looking guitar.
Yeah, it's the neck through. So there's a little problem here, so I'm glad I brought it down. I guess I have to go to take it repair. Shit. All right. Anyway, so this was another spoiled Jamie moment. I'm an artist endorser for Digitech.
Mm-hmm.
And very happy to be, it was prior to them leaving California, Salt Lake, and going to wherever. One of the representatives there asked me if I would like to try his friend's guitar that he's also in the company with, right? And I said, well, what kind of guitar? He said, well, the guy's in San Diego. His name is William Galvin, and he'll build you whatever you want, as long as you play it. So I brought my Ibanez, I brought my Strat, I brought my Les Paul, I brought this one over here.
Yeah, it looks like a Paul McCartney's bass. Yeah,
I'll explain that one later. So I said, look, I don't have gigs like other people. Like when other people can go out, Paul Gilbert can go and play with one sound for 4 hours. I can't.
Yeah.
I'm not a shredder that way. And I know what I do is I go from playing jazz to funk to R&B in the same song. You got to help me. So first I took the necks and I put because I don't know nothing about equipment. So I just put my hand around it. And they take a piece of wood and they tell me, is that comfortable? Okay, that's comfortable. Because I couldn't explain what you know or your listeners, the radius, how many frets. I know there's 24 frets. That's about all I know. So the first thing they said, they're going to give me copper frets that are hyperallergenic. That's going to be a big deal. Some other stuff. And then we start to talk about the guitar itself. And I said, well, I need to do this. So he says, okay, I'm going to give you my new patented VIP pickups. There are 5 pickups in every pickup. So 5 coil windings, completely independent of each other. And that's what it is. Instead of EQ, which some guitars might have.
Oh, so each switch, it's like what do you call it? Those the 330, 355s. What would they call those switches?
Oh, the Veritone?
The Veritone, yeah.
The Veritone was an EQ, but these are
That's
separate.
Actual pickups.
These are actual windings. One actually goes backwards. So the both humbuckers have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, it says 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 positions. The reason why I said 5 is the new ones had 5. So I had 6 positions, 6 pickups. So 6 pickups here, 6 pickups here. That's 12 pickups, and then here, right? So we have 6 here, we have 6 here. Then we have a 5-position switch. Then we have this button, which is a push-pull that splits any of the 12 pickups. You with me?
Yeah, so I'm trying to figure out how many combinations you have here. 36, 72 times 5 is 360. You have 360 different. I would need like a semester of college.
No, it's easy because you get used to it. You just turn the button.
Yeah.
And then this thing is great. This is a low-pass filter. So if I want to pull out if I don't want it to be too groaning or I know it's surprising to people, but I do heavy metal and stuff. And sometimes I want that sound that everybody wants, and sometimes I want to sound different. And then, just as for fun, he gave me the Van Halen shut-off thing.
Oh.
That's that button.
That's so funny.
So
God, so you've got like 720 times 2. You have 1,440 combinations. No, I would need a semester college. And I wouldn't be used to that. Wow.
So, but the thing is, it's a really nice guitar, and the pickups are warm. And so you'll find me using the Gelvin most of the time. The Ibanez, it's almost scary, Craig.
In what way? Scary, like?
Okay, so we didn't really get into it this time around yet, or at all. But after the earthquake, I got very sick, and I had PTSD and depression, and I lost everything I owned. And as you lose things, people around you in Hollywood think that the reason why you lost it is because you're hiring prostitutes, you're gambling, you're on drugs. So now I'm losing my work. The downfall, which you'll have in the book, and I hope some of your other listeners might be interested to read it, is the book is not about the downfall. The book is about the celebration after the downfall, after coming back. But I pawned and lost 19 guitars, including my Jimi Hendrix guitar, my Gretsch Anniversary, the first guitar I ever owned, everything. I actually have two emotional stories here. So I leave California. I'm pawning these instruments in 1994. And the white Ibanez is the guitar you see in all the Ponty videos, all that stuff. My favorite guitar, right by far. And the pawn shop, which was called Balboa Pawn in Van Nuys, California, or Reseda, they got to know me. And they were questioning whether I was on drugs after a while, because they heard me play, they saw videos of me, they saw records, and that is the natural...
Yeah, that's the natural reason why people are pawning shit.
Positively. And they told me stories. They got close enough to me to tell me, like, I won't repeat who it was, but famous guitar player, he spent $500,000 on cocaine, and that's his Marshall, all they got to tell me stories. And I know now that the angels that they were teaching me some stuff. For one thing, even 12-step meetings are based on the fact that other people have, that's what you share at these meetings. Other people have problems, And it got to the point where they would take any piece of shit that I brought. Like I had a ring that was worth $11, and I said, look, I didn't eat today. They'd give me $20. It got to be stupid after a while. Right. The truth of the matter is they made so much money because they were attached to the Russian mafia. So when my gold top Les Paul from 1969,
holy crap,
that I got for $300, they sold for $19,000. I know that for a fact, right? They made a lot of money, so they were almost glad to see me after a while, right? Well, I go back. I'm living in Utah, Salt Lake City, from 2001, and then about 2003. I go back to LA for a trip. I'm doing well financially, and I decide I need to walk in on Balboa Pawn and thank them for saving my life and paying my bills. And I walk in, and the first thing I see on the wall is my white Ibanez.
Oh, my God. Was there a wing named after you there, by the way?
Yeah, there should be. Should be. And I look at the guitar, and I cannot control my tears.
Yeah, what's the likelihood?
Yeah. And I said, that's my guitar. And I said, Jamie, almost all of your instruments were sold through the market. I know what that is, right? The brown market. Mm-hmm. Or he says, but this one, a player locally bought it, and he's now having financial difficulties, so he pawned it last week. What's that? What is the possibility of that, Craig? And I said, well, I don't care what it costs. I need to buy it. They said, well, we can't sell it to you. It's not yours. So they call this guy who will remain nameless, and they beg him to sell me the guitar.
Oh, it was just there it was just there as a layaway. Oh yeah.
So they bought it. I bought it for $700.
Wow, so great purchase.
And I've never had it out of my hands. Now, I want to tell you about this Les Paul.
Yeah, that's a gorgeous looking guitar.
I hope that before I have to actually go to work in an hour and a half, that's a gorgeous guitar. Yeah. You want to know about positivity, right? Your listeners want to know about positivity. So I'm on Facebook. I'm a Facebook fan. I have a business, a social media management business that's doing great. Very proud of it. And I'm deriving as much pleasure from my social media business as I did from music, or I do from music, for various reasons. Mostly because I'm helping people who have no idea what they're doing. And that's to see their musicians, artists, real estate people have success is a big deal to me. So as a guy, good player. His name is Steve Ruff. He's a Houston, Texas guitar player. Sends me a couple of tracks. And I have an online music school, or I had, called Go to Cyber School, which is now just a website. And he signs up for classes. And he takes some of the classes along with 20 other people, and he's really, really good. Really good. We become kind of friendly, you know. And one day he messages me on Facebook. He says, well, do you have a Les Paul? And I said, well, no, I don't. He said, do you like Les Pauls? I said, yeah. And so he said, well, what happened to your Les Paul? And I explained that I pawned it. I was very ill, and I pawned all my instruments, and I had a beautiful 1969 gold top. He said, oh, man, that's a shame. When's your birthday? It was January 21st. Okay, great. Thanks. So on the day of my birthday, I got a call from UPS in my town. Yeah, my town in Utah. And they said, Jamie, you have a package here from Houston, Texas. And I said, well, I don't know anybody in Houston. You know, I said, well, it's addressed to you. Got to come down and get it. It's pretty big. So I go down, there's this big box. I open the box, and there's the vintage Les Paul case and this 1969 Les Paul worth $15,000 or so. And the story goes like this. Steve was a student at GIT, Guitar Institute. And his roommate passed away from cancer.
Oh, man.
And before he died, he told Steve, here's my Les Paul. Please give this to someone who will love this and make music on it. So Steve chose me to give it to. This is a kind of a stranger. I mean, think about that. And
yeah, I've heard one other story. Some of that is well, no, it was just Charlie Starr. You know who that is? He plays with Blackberry Smoke, and he had a fan that was dying, and he gave him his 58 Gibson Les Paul. And, you know, it's just, you know, you hear there are people out there that are just.
Yeah. And Steve, you know, you think Houston, Texas oil, whatever. He's not he does music, and he's also a tax man. He's not overly wealthy. He followed the instructions of his roommate, and he knew that I would love it. He warned me. I mean, after it arrived, he said, look, so this guitar has a spirit about it. I hope that you're able to find that. And indeed, when I opened the case, I was blown away by its spirit. So you could look at a guitar and know all about the gear. And that's why I said early on, I mean, my Fender Stratocaster, which is not actually being seen right now. You see a Fernandez. But my Stratocaster, I bought from a guy who owed a drug dealer. It's a Mexican Strat. I paid $150 in cash. It's one of my favorite guitars in the world. And I've had Eric Clapton versions and all kinds of Jeff Beck version, and none of them can do what that guitar does.
That's awesome.
So you can go on Guitar Player Magazine or ZZ Sounds and read about, or any of your interviews and read about all the technical shit with the Linko Allen pickups and this and that. And you know what? For me, it's meaningless unless it makes music.
No, I agree with you. I always say a guitar, and I don't mean to be sexist. What I'm saying is like a woman, because, it's got to fit right. It's got to feel, you got to have a certain vibe, and again, that's not a sexist comment. That's my thing, women. I mean,
and I would like to marry actually the guitar and forget about the, I'm not being sexist either. Sure,
well, that's very cool, man.
Your house there, okay. I'm not trying to get you to send me to Les Paul. I'm just telling you.
Yeah. All right.
Those are the guitars that I mainly go. There is this Gander, which I wanted to show you.
Yeah. So let me describe the guitar.
Okay, let me bring that over.
It's definitely, I've never seen a guitar look like this before. So it's got the body of like
a violin, pretty much.
Yeah, it looks like some Fano guitars, or maybe what does that call a Bullet, or maybe a Fender Mustang sort of hybrid. And there's a big at the top. If you're holding the guitar up against your body, at the top right, with the top of the guitar on the right side has like a giant hole. It's pretty. It's wood, beautiful carved wood. Looks like an ebony.
Mahogany.
It's mahogany fretboard. It's gold hardware. It's a great looking guitar. I've never seen anything like it though. Seymour Duncan's has got in there, and again, all the knobs here. That's where it gets over my head.
This is easy, actually. This is a volume and a tone,
Okay, that is easy.
This electronically. Beautiful neck. So this is
the headstock is like ornate. It's like
the headstock is like
it's like a mantelpiece or something.
It's a piece of. All right, so I was doing the guitar work for a guy named J. Mark Bailey, who is a nice guy, wanted to be a country star, a Utah guy, but his main way of making a living was he sold vending machines.
That's a good business.
Giant business. Yeah, it's an enormous business. And he was at one time a partner with a guy in Canada. And so J. Mark told this guy in Canada about me, and this a billionaire guy who owns radio stations, he owns vending machine companies. He had a friend, a luthier craftsman, right, named Ray Gander. And he was coming out with these. You can go to ganderguitars.com. And this guy's idea was to build guitars that would equal the Stradivarius for violins. That these guitars would be extremely expensive, but crafted right down to the button. Not like, you could find a great Schecter or PRS or whatever, but these were just, every morsel is the finest wood that can be. Yeah. This not like, and he wanted to do this, and he wanted me to be the first representative of his line.
Very cool, man.
So he came down from Canada, and he brought this beautiful guitar, and I had him make some modifications, mostly the neck. It also, you didn't mention on the interview, but it has a Bigsby vibrato.
Yeah. Oh, that's a Bigsby?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Bigsby, I changed the handle.
Okay.
But it's got a Bigsby, but he has, let me take it down a second. So the Bigsby is a little different. It's based on the Bigsby, but you'll notice here, if you can see that on Skype, there's this thing in there. Can you see that?
Yes. What is that?
That is a material.
It's like a what do you call it? Not a spark. It's like a man. I'm having a brain fart. In the car, man, what a shock absorber is like.
It's a shock absorber. Well, he claims. First of all, there's two claims he makes. I'm hoping you'll go and your listeners will go to his website, Gander Guitars. Two things. One is there is no truss rod in this guitar. So the guitar is guaranteed to never, ever warp whatever. I forgot how he did it, but there is no truss rod. There's nothing adjustable about the neck. The second thing was he guarantees that the guitar will stay in tune, and it does. That's because of his mechanism. He invented that shock absorber.
Yeah, it's really cool. It makes a lot of sense, actually.
It does, but you know what the thing is? I don't get it. He's a scientist, right? So he figured out that there's that much. And he's talking to me is like talking to like my dog, right? So he's talking about the friction of X times 2, and that's why this shit doesn't go on a 2. And I was like, just put a Floyd on the damn thing. What do you just think? Oh, no, I got to put this on. Anyway, Ray Gander's done better, but he became homeless soon after this, and for good reason, because he's charging $7,000 for a guitar that nobody knew. You know, he had lousy promotion. It's a wonderful guitar. I'm very proud to have that.
Very cool, man.
One of the coolest guitars I have now is this one with my brother. And I don't know if you guys have talked about this one at all.
It's like, is that a Gibson or an Ibanez or a Guild?
It's a Teton.
Oh, they're from out by you, aren't they?
From China.
Wait a minute. Teton guitars?
Yeah.
There's a Teton.
Wonderful guitar, man. Wonderful.
Interesting.
I mean, I put it against the D'Angelico, which was like a $12,000 guitar, and it was very hard to hear the difference. And this thing sells for like $700.
Interesting. There's a company, I think it's in Utah or Oregon, called Teton Guitars.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I don't, maybe they're stationed here, but the guitar was made in China.
Interesting. Yeah. No, I think this company, they just make acoustics. That's a nice looking guitar. It looks like an old jazz box.
It sounds it's wonderful. So that was a gift from a music store here, Booth Brothers. They gave it to me.
What model is that, in case someone listening wants to check it out?
That's a good question.
It's Teton?
Yeah. You know, the model, must say it somewhere.
It looks like it's got 2 humbuckers. I mean, it looks like an old school jazz box.
Yeah, no, it's just built
beautiful.
Exactly. It's like an L5.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know the model number. I know I have to dust it. This is embarrassing. This is how much I don't know about guitars.
Well, that's okay. It's a jazz box by Teton, and it's a Sunburst. Really, honestly, looks like a real old school jazz box. Very pretty guitar. Really pretty guitar.
I'll send you a little bit. Let me write down on the list. I'll send you a video with me. I actually do the song, just the two of us. You know that song?
Yeah, sure. Of course.
And so I played the Gelvin, the green one, and the Teton as 2 different players.
That's cool, man.
And, it's on YouTube. Let me write that. Gelvin, 2 of us. Am I giving you the answers?
Yeah, man.
I mean, I
want to ask you a music question. Another music question.
I don't know anything about music.
And this is simple.
You were really fun, man. And
thank you.
I feel like I'd rather do the interview about you because I already know about me. I'm pretty bored with me. I'm like,
nobody would ever listen to me again if I had an interview about me. They say, this guy's so fucked up. How can I listen to this guy?
This shit. All right.
Desert Island Discs, top 3.
Top 3.
Just for tonight.
This is where you're going to lose listeners.
What are you going to say?
So number 1, I would bring my 10 Years After album with Alvin Lee,
one of
where
my
he
favorites.
sings Going Home, and that's an old album.
Yeah, I love that record.
I realized that Eric Clapton, I'm known as a jazz fusion guy, but Eric Clapton and Alvin Lee, along with jazzers, Johnny Smith, Kenny Burrell, were probably my greatest inspirations early on. Second is going to blow your listeners' mind, and that would be, I bought this from somewhere. It's the 100 Greatest Disco Songs.
Yeah, that's a surprise.
I know, and everybody's shocked. And believe it or not, I started doing an album playing instrumental with this, like, ain't no stopping us now, and I just played fusion all over the thing. It was the coolest shit ever. I don't listen to music that much because I do it for a living, right? So for me to do 10-hour days arranging music or recording or writing, and then to go listen to Guthrie Govan from 11 o'clock I just don't do it, right? Totally, like the doctor doing surgery after they coming home to the wife for dinner and taking her kidneys out. so I don't get a chance. But so I bought this record, and it's got every disco hit ever from The Hustle. And I was I from New York, right? When the Sounds of Philadelphia happened,
oh yeah,
I started to do sessions there.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really jealous at that time because I didn't play on the record The Hustle, which was the like #1 record.
Yeah, I remember that. That's so funny.
But I played on a bunch of them, and then my wife at the time had a couple of disco hits. So I don't dance or any of that shit, but
I'm shocked.
I don't dance at all. I'll do it if you make me. And then third, the Dirty Loops.
Dirty Loops.
Yeah.
What? Why?
Why? It's
no. I said who's record? I said by
Dirty Loops.
Just like the album's called. What is it?
Ever heard Dirty Loops?
No. What is that?
Oh my Lord! I'm gonna have to move in with you.
I'm a neophyte. All
right, Dirty Loops is like the. Have you heard of the band Knower?
No.
All right, we have to get together. Anyway, Dirty Loops is like a YouTube. They started doing these videos. They're kind of progressive rock with jazz overtones, but they're not fusion.
Okay, I'll check them out.
The lead singer, you know the company Samsung, of course.
Yes, of course.
So they have their phone every year. They have a ringtone song. Dirty Loops did last year's thing. They're giant. They're enormous.
I'll check them out.
By David Foster. I love Dirty Loops.
Wow.
Loops, and indeed, that's the only CD in my car.
The Dirty Loops.
I hear it. I for some reason I can't stop listening to it.
That's good, man. That's what music's for.
Yeah. So if I went there, and then if there's a fourth choice, I'd probably bring Frank Sinatra's Greatest Hits, which has my father's song on it.
Very cool.
You see, Craig, and I see myself as a composer. Guitar is a vehicle for me.
Totally get it.
And we talked about regrets and the Jimi Hendrix thing earlier on, if any of that appears in the interview later. And the thing is that the guitar to me is part of the orchestra, and it's what I use. Now, I have 4 solo albums, a Christmas album and some other stuff, right? And I have never composed one of the songs on a guitar.
What do you write on piano?
Everything's on piano.
Yeah.
And
you're a super talented guy, man, to be.
But here's the thing, Craig. The new album.
You know what's funny? I gave you a compliment. You didn't even shut up. You just like talked right over me.
I don't think. I know.
Like not even a pause. Just
no pause. The thing is, and I thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. In fact,
you're very welcome.
The thing is that because I have to believe it, to say, and I'm just another guy.
Doesn't mean you're super talented. Not super talented.
The new album, when it's done, is the first time ever where I'm actually composing on the guitar.
Oh, really? That's very cool, man.
So are you going to play any music during this interview at all?
No, but I'll tell you what, when your new album comes out, why don't you come back on the show and we'll do a special to promote it, and then you could play snippets if you'd like.
That would be really amazing.
I'd be really happy to support that any way I can.
Well, there's a song which I've already sent my newsletter people, my email marketing, called Peg Leg, which was the first attempt. And to my shock and surprise, that was the greatest reaction I've ever gotten to anything I've ever done, ever.
Really?
Yeah, and so this was, again, like a major lesson. I was like, well, why is it that every guitar player that I see or know, they sit with a guitar for hours and they noodle and they come up with an idea or they sketch it out or whatever, and I don't do that. So this whole new record is primarily done as guitar compositions, and I expect that it will be exciting for me, the fans, because it's got to be different. I'm not Beethoven, I'm not a Rachmaninoff on keyboards. I know my way around, and I use computers to improve my playing, with that because of MIDI. But with a guitar, on a good day, I can play. So
yeah, I think you're pretty good. I think you're okay on guitar.
They can't see.
Hey, 3 questions. Yeah. Best decision you ever made?
To learn how to read music, by far. Everything that my life is based on, production, recording, making a living, the best gigs. I picture that in my mind, Jean-Luc Ponty is the best gig that could ever have been in the world for various reasons. I think mostly because he's an innovator, that he was not like anybody else, and for another billion reasons. So reading music. My audition for Jean-Luc Ponty was based on me sight reading the Enigmatic Ocean and Imaginary Voyage album.
Wow.
And he didn't even like me. He just thought I could read.
That hasn't changed in 40 years, but he still wants you to play guitar.
He still doesn't like me. No, he loves me. He's like my brother, my uncle.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, it's the best decision.
Toughest decision you've had to make, or most difficult thing you've had to do?
Well, that's a personal thing, which goes back to the fact that if there's anything in life that I yearn for that I did not get, and that is children. Yeah. So the fact that my first marriage did produce children and they didn't survive is something that kills me. And that's it in my whole life, really, that I would love. Now, we did not talk about it, but I don't, and I'm not sure your listeners even know this, but I am more well known by way far, for being an expert in chinchillas, the animal, the chinchilla. In fact, my music videos on YouTube or Vivo, or wherever, they'll bring 20,000 views or 30, or, I'm not an enormous entity, but my chinchilla videos bring 1 million or 500,000. And the Humane Society uses them, and I'm very proud of that. And what I did, because of the blessing of the first chinchilla I had, was like music. I decided there has to be more. There has to be way more that people don't know. This striving in music to be an innovator, to find the next new sound, the chord, the thing that will elevate people, that will take a guitar player and they want to know, they would to make the next Stairway to Heaven intro, that's what I found with chinchillas. Out of all the animals, and I have 14 pets, the chinchilla is a challenge, because they are not really domesticated and they are not really wild. There is what they call a wild. Do you know what a chinchilla is? Yeah,
it's a cute little furry thing. It's looks like a kind of a guinea pig, close looking.
They're between. Well, they look more between a rabbit and
yeah.
But they come from South America, from the Andes, and they were used. The name chinchilla comes from the Chinchi Indians. And the Indians used to eat them. And then later they became the fur industry. The British went over and they decided that this was which by the way it is, more soft than mink, more soft than any animal on this planet. So it would take 200, 300, 400 of these animals to make one coat. And in 1928, they were brought over to the United States. By a man named M.F. Chapman, who brought them over really to improve them so they would be more valuable as fur. Mm. And what he did was start a revolution, because the wild chinchilla, if you ever look, you can look on YouTube at wild chinchillas in Chile, they don't look like the chinchilla that you would know it from PetSmart.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so from 1928 to the present, these animals have been bred in captivity, and because of the cage size, their look changed, their fur changed. Actually, the fur of a wild chinchilla is nowhere as lush as the ones that we know.
Because they bred them specifically for that purpose.
Interesting. Including the nutrition, the way their air is vented, and all this. I know it's not an animal show, but because they're somewhere, they've been in human beings' custody for 100 years now, they have little bits and pieces of domestication. They're prey animals, so their first thing is to run.
Yeah.
When they trust you and you become part of their herd, they still will run, but you learn. And so it was, for me, as the biggest music challenge I could ever believe was for me to find a way to communicate with a chinchilla. And I found those ways. And I became, in fact, there was a
chinchilla whisperer.
Yeah, chinchilla whisperer. In fact, there was a giant, I forgot who they are. I know it's on Huffington Post now, whatever, where they say Jamie Glaser is YouTube's Dr. Dolittle, which was a big article, right? Because I have videos where my guinea pigs are singing, which they're not, of course, it's me.
I saw a video you had with one of your chinchillas, and it was like you put the talking voice behind. You're like, oh, I'm getting ready to.
I got people. I had they're in magazines. They're on Animal Planet, and people. When my first chinchilla, the one that really changed my life, passed away, I had over 1,000 letters come to my
condolence letters.
Condolence letters.
Yeah, wow.
From all over the world. Lucky the chinchilla. Lucky the chinchilla. Unbelievable. I mean, it was, and then, of course, being a marketer, I made a DVD of all my YouTube animal things, and I sold that. And I sold my guinea pig who's passed away. He has his own thing, right? He had a thing called "Where's the Party," where he wants to know how to go party, and then he came up with. This is how fucked up I am. He came up with. I got my own life. I got my own things to do. That's one I'd love your listeners and you guys to watch. So look up Doc the guinea pig singing. I got my own life. And in this one, he lectures the people that if someone is on your ass, somebody at work is not leaving you alone. They're bugging you, whatever. You tell them, I got my own life. And anyway, I sold like 500 T-shirts of this. People were. And in the video that I did, I took the guinea pig all over my town here. And then I played the music, and I have the people at Kentucky Fried Chicken singing, I got my own life. The UPS, the post office, the gas station, UPS, Domino's Pizza. People are singing, and then it spread like,
That's a viral thing, yeah.
The internet, right? So now I'm getting videos from Germany. People are in the mall singing, I got my own life.
That's hilarious.
German. And I'm like, what the hell did I do here? Because I'm the guinea pig, right? It's my voice. It's like, so I finally got famous, just not from music.
And in your spare time? Holy shit! I'm exhausted just from listening to all the stuff you do. I couldn't. No, I don't mean it like that. I mean like it's like I cannot believe how much stuff you got going on.
In my spare time, I look to service others. I go to Children's Hospital and I play for them. I go to elderly convalescent homes. I had a scooter accident in 2005. I have a little Honda, I guess people call it a moped, but it's a 80cc thing, which I keep alive. It's from 1993, right? And every year I spend more money on that fucking scooter than I did on any amplifier I ever owned. And they didn't tell me that. So I was on the shoulder because I was avoiding the traffic. I couldn't be as fast as the traffic. Nobody told me they were doing construction. I ended up in a hole and hit a wall.
Oh.
Anyway, I ended up in the hospital with a broken tibia. They were going to amputate my leg.
God.
And I broke my shoulder. You can see the scar. And the ball of the shoulder cracked in half. And so
God,
I was just, again, man, I'm just covered by guardian angels. So they were going to amputate my leg. I guess I was just about in a coma, or I was just going in and out. So they figured I was going to go. And then the doctor who handles the team, the Utah Jazz, he happened to be there. And this is a guy like you and me who won't take no for an answer. So he said, let me go see the patient. He goes, he decides that he's going to save me.
Very cool.
They did a 12-hour surgery. And I ended up in a convalescent home for 3 months in a wheelchair, told I would never walk again or play. And I told everybody, excuse my language, fuck you. You don't tell me what I can't do. And so what I did in a brace with my hand like this is I went to the hospital piano and I played every night for these elderly people, some with Alzheimer's. And I said, let me heal. Let the music heal these people. And I can play and I can do whatever the hell I want now. Because I don't take no for an answer. I mean, I'm sure one day when I'm about to die and I tell the universe I don't want to go, I may lose. But for now, I don't take no, brother. Why am I telling you this story?
I don't know. I just said about your spare time.
What did you ask me?
No, I didn't ask anything. No.
Yeah, it was about the spare time. So because of living in a convalescent home, I try to spend time entertaining people in old age homes and stuff. I teach meditation, and the spare time, having 14 pets that are not in cages, to take care of them, to nurture them, to love them, is an enormous amount of time. You do realize only talking to a bunch of musicians is the place where nobody will even think that you're nuts for having 14 pets. No.
It's like totally normal.
I've done other things where people, we had call-in interviews, and they said, actually, we were less about guitar than I expected in this interview, and on other ones they asked me more guitar-ish stuff, right? How do I approach this? How do I do that? How do I look at harmony? Whatever. And then they'll bring up the animals, right? And then the call-in people, well, I have a guinea pig. What do you do? Well, like nobody gives a crap that I play guitar. So the animals, and we didn't get a chance to talk about this. Maybe we will for a few minutes, but I have a social media management company.
Yeah, let me ask you the last question, then I want to talk about all of that, all this stuff. Could I ask you one last question? Yes. Thanks.
I'm here for you.
Biggest change, and I'm here for you, Jamie. Biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years, and how much of that change has been intentional and deliberate, and how much is just a natural progression of aging?
I don't think about aging. In fact, I'm pretty weird about that. I was going to go to this.
There's nothing you can say at this point where I'm weird about something. You shot that load like about 20 minutes into this fucking thing, man.
I was going to go to
you don't get a pass on that.
Go to the Department of Motor Vehicles and change my age and call the Social Security Department because I didn't like how the number looked. And the reason why I didn't was because I went to a buffet called Chuckarama, which is really popular here in Utah. And they asked my age, and I wouldn't tell them, and my friend told them. And they said, well, you got a discount, right? And that was it. I mean, now I tell people, like, I'll tell them I'm 80 just to get the discount. So that blew out. So I don't really think anything's about aging. I think that the main thing is that reaching out to others is the biggest personality change, is reaching out both not only to help them, but I found that I am way, 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 way more healthy and more fulfilled when I get out of Jamie's world. And
like you did today, man. And I really appreciate that, to be honest with you.
I appreciate you asking and giving me an opportunity. I mean, you could look at a guy blabbing to you on Skype for a couple hours and say, man, just been talking about Jamie all the time. But I would rather the listener take something from it, the positivity, whatever, and say, look, I'm going to practice today. I'm going to listen to whatever guitar player and see if I could innovate from that person. So what I see on YouTube is a lot of people copying the latest, greatest, fastest. And I don't see it a lot anyway, in my opinion. And it's just my vision of how it looks. I grew up with guitar players when they heard Al DiMeola, and who was my peer, and they say, that's great. Let me take a little bit of what Al has and build something new. And because YouTube, and I have nothing against YouTube, it sure sounds like I don't like YouTube, but YouTube is a place where everybody who has enough money to plug a guitar in can play for you. You know, I don't see them looking past that point. You had asked me once whether I'm a rule breaker or follower. And indeed, I'm both. But instead of being a rule breaker, I break the rules if it seems innovative and helpful, instead of just trying to break the rules. You know, you and I both grew up in rock and roll. Rock and roll is about anti-establishment. Totally. It was always about, you know, not being like our parents. If you watch the Geico commercial, we've all become our parents, right? And worse. I talk to people my age, and they're like, well, I hate rock and roll. Now it's nothing like we had. And what is rap music? That's not music. I mean, we sound just like our parents.
Kind of, yeah.
I do that, man. I drive in the car. I put hip hop on, and I have no idea what any. I mean, I had to go on the Urban Dictionary the other day to find out what the hell they were smoking. Right? It's like I'm smoking it. I figured it was crack for some reason because I'm apparently a racist. And it was talking about somebody smoking marijuana in a closed room with the windows closed.
This, Jamie, is where having kids helps.
Okay.
Instead of looking up Urban Dictionary, I make a phone call. If I don't know how to work my iPhone, I make a phone call, man.
There you are. Yeah, I mean, these people that Facebook message me all day, they're like, well, TBH. I'm like, what the fuck is TBH? To be honest, I mean, like, why don't you just type the fucking word out, you know? But it's all right. Hi.
Hey, man, let me. So reaching out to others has been
reaching out to others,
and what prompted that, or was it?
Well, two things. One is my desire to help and serve others, and number two is the selfish part of me, because the more I'm able to serve others, the better I feel. So now I'm not a guy who'll go out and say, look, this week I gave the Humane Society $5,000. That's not me. Yeah. I'm not looking for that kind of attention. When my book came out, you know, Craig, here's the thing. At the very beginning, when we first started talking today, I made kind of a loud statement about that most of the people complaining that music, you're selling out if you make money and all this stuff. And I pointed out to you that almost everybody that says that admires somebody who's very wealthy and very famous.
Right.
It's a comfort zone for them, right? And it's the kind of the same dynamic here with serving others. I get pleasure from helping others, right? So am I completely philanthropic? No. I mean, the real truth is I'm deriving pleasure. When my book saved 2 people on Facebook from suicide last year, I don't walk around and go, you know, the people can't see what I'm doing, but, you know, patting myself on the back. But instead, I go outside and I look at the sky and I thank whoever it is, for allowing me to put into words something that saved somebody's life. You see what I mean?
Which is awesome.
But I would be a complete, utter fucking liar if I told you, man, I don't feel good, that it doesn't make me proud, that it's my book and, you know, not Craig Garber's book this time, although I'm going to buy all your books.
Let's do this. Let's talk about Hear the Silence, your book. Let's talk about it. First of all, talk about, you know, what made you decide to write it? What's it about, and where can people get it?
Okay, this is pretty easy.
No way.
Yeah, no. Wait, I can't wait to hear what you said. Tell Steve later. Okay, so I was told by the shrink. All right, so let me back this up, because I don't know what's going to end up in this interview and how it's going to sound.
Like pretty much everything except the bathroom pit stops is going to end up in here.
Okay. I was in.
And do you want me to tell you a funny story about that?
The bathroom?
Yeah. And I'll tell this to the listeners for the first time.
Yes.
So we don't have, this isn't like everybody listening and you go in the studio and edit. This is like ghetto editing, right?
Perfect.
So I look at one day like iTunes, and someone gave me 1 star, and I said, "Oh, let me check that out." I was curious what they wrote, and this is what it said. It said, "I can't believe this guy. He interviews Corey Wong, tells Corey he has to go pee, and then leaves the tape running."
Oh, boy.
And I looked at it. You know what? I looked at that guy as an angel, because I went and edited the pee part out. So he was my angel. So I totally get the angel thing, man.
Yeah.
So that's the first time revealed to listeners. That is a true story that happened. So now I really make a good effort to edit out bathroom stops.
No, this is a great story, and we've gone 3 times in this 12 hours we've been together. All right, so here we go.
Hear the silence.
So I was in Yugoslavia playing with Manhattan Transfer, and over the hotel I heard sounds that I had never heard before, and those sounds were the sounds of bombs.
Holy shit!
Okay, and now they were not over Zagreb at the time, but I had never heard a bomb before, and we inquired as to what it was, and it was in fact. Serbia, the bombing. And we were advised that the sooner we could get out of the country by the embassy, the safer we would be. Oh, of course, all tours are set up by booking agents, travel agents and management, but we were able to get a flight out. I don't recall, to be honest with you, how many hours, but I'm sure it's 12, 15 hours, whatever the flight was.
There? Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah. And we get on a flight. We get back to Los Angeles airport. It's about 3:30 in the morning, as I recall. And I get my car out of the extended parking, and I drive home into the San Fernando Valley, where I lived in a town called North Hills, or Granada Hills. And I can't sleep, So I go into my little studio, I turn on the computer, which was a Radio Shack PC, some crap, 94. And all of a sudden the room starts to shake. All my guitars, like they are now, are on the wall. And one by one they start to fall. And I am in the middle of the room. And then the chandelier, it's not. It was an apartment. I'm not talking about the chandelier at a museum. The chandelier had some lamp. Starts to shake, and it flies out of the ceiling, breaks out of the ceiling, crunches against the wall. Now there's glass everywhere. And the sound was like nothing I can even describe. I mean, I'm getting jittery just thinking about it. And my dog is Bubbles, is a beagle. She's disappeared. I don't know where the fuck she is. And so now the shaking stops. I don't know where I am. I was so shaken, Craig, that I can't even believe what it is. And I had a doll. God, what a weird story. I had a doll. You pulled on its legs. It was on a spring. You pull on its legs and it would laugh, kind of demonic kind of laughter, right? And I use this as a tool. It's called a pattern interrupt.
Yes.
So I used to give private guitar lessons. I had 60 students. They would come to my house, and if they really messed up or they told me, Jamie, I can't get that chord, I can't get that lick, I can't read that music, I'd pull the doll just to interrupt this pattern of them saying they couldn't achieve. Well, I heard the freaking glass crashing and crunches and the sound of like a railroad going through my apartment, and the only other sound was the doll.
Oh my God.
And I had been up the entire time on the flight.
Oh, you didn't sleep, right?
Sleep. And at that moment, I decided that I had died. I mean, I'm not telling you like fluffing a story up. I was convinced that I was not only dead, but because of things I've done in my life, I was in hell. Now,
Wow.
we didn't grow up in the Jewish religion with a Satan, a heaven and a hell, but I had most of my friends are Christian, and so I believed there was Satan and hell. And from that point on, nothing was the same. So the firemen broke the door down. I was in. Now you got to picture this. I'm on television all the time, on the news, on King Biscuit Flour Hour, on MTV, on everything, all the time. And as famous as I'm not, I was very well known. In LA, I could not go out to a restaurant without knowing somebody. I mean, I had to drive to Santa Barbara or even to Vegas to have a private night. And
because
so
of the experience with the hurricane.
No, because of how much music I did.
Okay, the music. Okay.
I mean, everybody knew me.
Okay.
I mean, I had Diana Ross's guitar player come to my car and yell at me because I didn't get him a gig. I mean, I didn't even know the guy. It just got to be the person I was married to and I had to escape the town because wherever anybody was, I was on TV enough that normal people saw me. They might not know who I am. The musicians all knew me because I did studio, I did weddings, I did everything, fashion shows. I was just like, I know you don't think I have any energy, but I was doing a lot of stuff. So anyway, the fireman takes me out. I'm in my bikini underwear, completely vain and all about me.
That might have been the one thing that was too much information.
Yeah, maybe that's. But you got a picture. Everybody's outside the apartment, and here, Mr. who thinks he's famous walks out in his underwear with some blood on him. I wasn't hurt. A couple of scratches. Really, thank goodness, because I lost two friends. The apartment, only an eighth of a mile down, collapsed the third floor to the first and killed two of my friends. Crushed them. Right. I was a quarter mile from the epicenter, Northridge earthquake. And so now I have no place, so I'm in my underwear with my dog, and we're lying down in the back of my hatchback, which is a Ford Mustang, and the aftershocks start. Anyway, long story short, I'm up for 3 or 4 days straight. I don't think someone on meth could be up as long as I was and as tense as I was. And when I was allowed back into my apartment, I was not Jamie anymore. There was nothing about me that I knew. And there was nothing in the world except the dog that I cared about. I could have turned the sink on and drowned and I wouldn't care. I didn't. So
you think you just like had a breakdown from stress or like?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so what happened was, and I said this on a CBS television interview, and I like to repeat what I said in that interview because I don't know where it came from, but indeed, and I'll repeat what I said on TV, it was like they took me and pulled me out of me. So my brain shut off. And so we go now 6 months. I don't want to get out of bed. I was basically in bed for 6 months. I screwed over every account I had. So when I was the band leader that someone picked for their wedding, I didn't show up. The people I worked for were getting sued. I did not eat. I was a 26 waist and 118 pounds.
Holy crap.
So people thought that I was on cocaine or heroin or something. And the more they thought that, the less work I got. And eventually I ended up in a park because I had no place to live. For one night, by the way. This is not like make more of a story. That night, I said, okay, this is going to be my future. So I need to learn how to.
Amazing how adaptable we are.
Yes, yes. Well, until the morning. So I slept in the park with a log, and I brought my winter jacket, which wasn't much in LA, and I woke up in the morning. Now, I've gone 6 months now. Pawned my instruments, not working, in bed, using the electricity from my friend's apartment because I didn't have electricity. I mean, this got to be where no man's land could be.
Was this this was like after divorce or before you got married?
I was divorced.
Okay.
I was living alone. Okay. So I was divorced in 81.
Okay.
So I dated and all that stuff. So anyway, I slept in the park. I woke up that day, and it's in the book. And I was itching like fucking crazy. And I looked down, and there are ants.
Oh, man, them fire ants.
Going in and out of my underwear, up my shirt. And that was it. Now, by the way, I want to preface this by saying, Craig, that I didn't think anything was wrong. I was that out there that I thought that it was normal to lose all your instruments. I didn't like it. There was a sense in me that this wasn't going well, but I didn't think it was that out there. I thought it was normal to call my guitar students to please buy me some food. I mean, it got to your brain just does stuff,
yeah.
Right? And so when you think it's normal, there's no way to fix it.
Right, of course.
But here, for whatever reason, that moment when the ants were doing this, that was it. That's, I guess, what some people would call the bottom.
Bottom, yeah, rock bottom.
And I stood up like it's a movie in the middle of this park. And that was it. I called on God and I yelled, "Why did you do this to me? Why is this happening to me? I don't understand." On and on and on. First time, so my brain finally saw who I had become. And that was the beginning and the reason why I wrote the book, because when I came back to my apartment after asking God why this happened and for help, I asked, please, please, please help me. Remember, I didn't think anything was wrong before, so I didn't ask for help. I mean, I asked somebody to buy me food. I went to the Salvation Army. I thought, well, they have food. I'll just go get it. I didn't, it was no normalcy. So then I get home, and then is the book. The book tells the stories about all these things that happened that brought me back. Story after story after story. I could tell you a quick one if we have time.
Yeah. Talk about it.
Because I know you haven't read the book. So I had no money, or a couple dollars maybe, and I had a phone bill. So I decided that I would. Now my life is still not together, but I'm starting to improve a little. I decided I'm going to use my ex-wife's Social Security number. Right? But I first got in trouble because I went on a gig with Manhattan Transfer, and I had copied down the Social Security numbers from a music union contract of Elvis Presley's band. And I used the guitar player's Social Security number, who was dead 20 years, because I needed service, right?
Sure.
I had something. And then Pacific Bell, which was the big telephone company, said, "We can't use that number. This is of a deceased person." So I was caught. They told me that they could press charges, but they didn't. I also went to downtown LA to where they sell drugs to buy a fake Social Security card, anything so I could get a credit card.
Yeah.
I was in trouble. You do things that are unheard of.
Absolutely, man. And you know what? In the big picture of life, you weren't hurting anybody.
I wasn't, but when I think about, I mean, I don't regret, believe it or not, these memories are not horrible because they brought me to today.
Yeah, right.
Where I can be your friend. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah,
that's a big deal to me to know someone classy like you. I mean, that the classy of my friends.
I wouldn't get that out of. You're getting way over the fucking top now, man.
I don't think so. So anyway,
but thanks.
So the first thing that happens is we in the bottom part of this building I lived in. The manager was a bishop at a church called Grace Church, which is a big church in LA. He let disabled people live in the bottom level. And there was one guy whose name is Chris. Chris Haneke was his name. And Chris was normal, but he had a car accident in front of Pepperdine University, and it hit a part of his brain, and it gave him the equal of cerebral palsy.
Oh my God, that's so sad.
He could not speak anymore, and he was basically paralyzed. He was in worse shape than most people with cerebral palsy. So I needed to pay the phone bill. I decided, I'm on speaking terms with my first wife. I'll use her Social Security card. I'll pay for the bill through her, and I'll get her the money back someday. Well, didn't work out so well. She got the bill. We were divorced already 15 years. And I got a phone call from her. You son of a bitch. You, and on. Jamie, you have never been responsible. You have never handled money right. You just like yelling at me. And I was so untogether that my reaction was anger. Yeah. You think I'm Mr. Positive, and I am, because of some of these things. And I remember I took my hand and I punched the wall, which that's just not me, right? I was at my wit's end. So I run downstairs to get my mail, and I am angry. I am walking down a hallway like a crazy person. F her, and why couldn't she help me? Everybody, you get to this place. Why couldn't she help me? She knows I'm in trouble. All I used was $67 of her money. I mean, on and on, babbling. I get downstairs, and Chris Haneke's there. And Chris can't speak. He's got a board on his wheelchair. It says, please speak to me normally. I understand. I just can't speak. And he had a hat with a pointer. And you would give him the board, and he would point to letters. That's how he talked to you. So if he wanted to say, hello, Craig, he would go H-L-O and C-R-G, right? We all knew the system. So I'm as angry as I have ever been in the history of my entire life. And Chris, who can't speak, who can't walk, who can't do nothing, man, nothing. He goes, he can't speak, and I'm not making fun, but that's how he sounds.
Yeah, sure.
Donald Trump did the same crap. But right? And I said, Craig, I said, Chris, I'm sorry, man. I can't be bothered right now. That's that's just not Jamie, right? I said, are you okay, man? I said, look, I had a really bad day. I just had a fight with my ex-wife. I'll come back later. I'll take you. I used to take him for walks, push the wheelchair around. He wouldn't have it, man. He wouldn't have it. He indicated he wanted me to take his board off so he could speak to me. So oh boy. So I gave him the board, and he spells out, isn't this a beautiful day? I'm sorry. I'm getting emotional.
All right, man. Take your time.
Wow. This is the first chapter of my book. Isn't this a beautiful day? And that was my moment. And I say in the book, and Hear the Silence, he taught me everything I had forgotten. Everything I didn't know, everything that I didn't realize, everything that I needed was in that moment. Because I didn't feel superior because I could speak. I didn't feel superior because I could walk. He saw everything that my brain shut out. I'm in LA. The sun is shining. I have a place to live. I can talk, I can walk, I can listen, I can love. Everything that had no importance, that moment brought back. And when I finished with Chris, which again is in the chapter, I don't want to write the whole book for you on your interview, I went upstairs and I got a piece of paper and I began Hear the Silence. And my every chapter of the book, except the one that explains the earthquake, is a story like Chris. Every single chapter. This happened. This is what it did. Now, please take my story and use it in your life.
Hmm.
And therefore, I think I'm way more prideful in a healthy way about my book because people have been helped. And that, I've had people write me, look, that this is the reason, Jamie, that you had the blues, and this is why you hit bottom, to help people. I don't care what the why. I'm writing a new book right now called The Magic Pencil. And this book is about a pencil, which I will provide, where you can rewrite your whole life.
People don't realize they could do that at any time.
Right. And you've done that, because I know the little I know of you, you can. And people have to be given permission. And in this book, I not only give permission, but I advise them. So hear the silence.
That's a very important message, man.
Yeah. No. I mean, the thing is, people are always – look, I'm a fan of all the self-help people, the Tony Robbins and the Deepak Chopras and the Wayne Dyers, and I've read all their – or most of their works. But it's always talking to you. Craig, you could be happy if you did this. You could lose weight if you could do – not you. You could do
You're saying
this.
I'm fat? Come on,
you
Jamie.
You could make money if you – and what I endeavor to do in the book, which I'm 3/4 finished with, is say, okay, the book has my name on it, but this is your book. Here's the pencil. Now write your new book.
That's a great.
I really feel like I'm going to reach some people. I hope so, Craig.
Much need, man. Thank you very much for sharing that story. That was very kind of you. I really appreciate that.
I mean, you're going to need an ear cleaning after this interview today.
Just a drink. I'll be good with that.
A drink.
Where can people get it?
JamieGlaser.com, which is pretty easy. That's with an S, not a Z, Glaser, or whatever the hell I spell my name. And at Go to Cyber School, GOTO cyberschool.com, and you can look there. There's a tab there that says book. And that's how you can. Now, the reason why I'm suggesting that rather than Amazon, which is also on. And by the way, there's an ebook, but the ebook was never revised. So I suggest the paperback or the audiobook. There's an audiobook version.
Did you read the audio yourself?
Yes.
Okay. I haven't done an audiobook. Mine book is much older than, well, maybe not, but I never did. People ask me.
It's fun, man. I have scrolling software, which I have on the computer, and I'm like trying to keep up with myself and try to still be me. It's tough to keep up with me.
It is.
On go to cyberschool.com, if you go on the book thing, you can opt in for I'm proud and honored to personalize and autograph it. So if you say, write this to my son Don, and I do that. It's also cheaper. So I don't remember what it is. I think it's $10, and on Amazon it's like $15.
Very cool. So go to cyberschool.com.
Yeah.
Or on Jamie Glaser, Jamie, Jamie, Glaser, GLASER.com. Hear the silence. What you got some other stuff going on at Go to Cyber School. Want to talk about that?
Yeah, go to cyberschool.com. I have some courses that colleges use that they sell to their students between $40 and $60 a DVD or whatever. I sell them for $15 on there. So I not to rip off colleges because it's a nice part of my passive income, but this gives me an opportunity to share. I have a sight reading course, how to sight read like a pro. It's called Turn It Up. That's probably my most popular. I have a course where I guarantee you will learn how to read music on guitar in 14 days.
What is that called? That's pretty cool.
That's called Beam Me Up.
Beam Me Up, like Beam Me Up, Scotty?
It's popular, very popular, and I'm proud to say that a lot of people have written me that they struggled with reading, that they hated reading, and that this worked for them. So I'm very proud, and I'm proud of the people who've taken the challenge. One guy was funny. He wrote me a letter on Facebook. He said he's not going to ask for a refund, but it took him 16 days.
That's very benevolent of him.
And he was pissed off. He said, but to be honest with you, I took one day off. So
so it's 15 days.
It's 15. So
that's a glass half full, glass half empty.
Want your damn $15 back? You can have it, brother.
Hey, you get letters of how nice you help people. I get letters about I left the P thing on a fucking interview. So, be very happy, Jamie.
I get some very strange letters. I am very involved in social media.
Yeah, let's talk about your social media company.
Oh, okay. All right. Here's the thing. 5 years ago, I get a phone call from a very dear friend's wife. And she said to me, Jamie, I need your help. And I said, what's wrong? And she told me that I don't want to use his name. He's a pretty popular musician in the Nevada area. Says, I'm going to divorce my husband. And I said, well, why? What happened? Well, he's spending all his money on Facebook ads and Facebook boosts. And she says, I know that you're successful on Facebook. You have 5,000 friends, and you tell everybody you're selling your CDs and all this stuff. He says, we can't pay the mortgage. I have to take a job, because he felt when he had 40 new likes that if he spent another $20, he'd have 80. And indeed, he brought his likes up, but it was not exponential. And so now he's blown the mortgage.
You know what that sounds like? That sounds like you would have done that guy a favor to let his wife divorce him.
Well, you know what?
To be really honest with you.
I love the guy, so I won't agree, but I can understand. That's funny.
He spent $20 on a Facebook ad.
I said, yeah, I'm involved in helping a couple people locally with Facebook primarily. I'm on. I don't. Twitter wasn't that big 5 years ago, but Facebook was already roaring. And by the way, in those days, Facebook was a lot looser, and because you're a lead management giant. You are now.
Your ability to run more aggressive ads was great.
Yeah, we got aggressive ads. We used to all have vanity addresses, and as a marketer, I could scrape those. If I saw there was a guitar group, I could take everybody's email, which, by the way, without giving anything away, I can still do that, but nobody's supposed to know. But I have $2,000 at least worth of software to make Facebook profitable. And so I took my 30 years of marketing, and which I did. I loved marketing and advertising. And I said, well, this has to be changed for social media. And I created a plan to take what was good from traditional advertising and marketing, the concepts, and then bring it into the new world. Because social media is a place where advertising is the worst thing you can do. You have to advertise by not advertising. It's completely anti what you and I were brought up with in the marketing world. I have a video on YouTube, do not be a billboard. That's one of my biggest social media things. Do not be a billboard. If you're not willing to get on, connect with people, respond, give human stories, put content marketing, blah, 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 you're going nowhere on Facebook fast. Unless you have a ton of money. Lady Gaga can put down that she took a crap on a bench and sell records, but we're not all Lady Gaga. So after helping him and helping their marriage, I decided to make a business. I call it JG Social Media Solutions. And I have the most enormous, wonderful clients. Everybody from Andrew Collier, who's a keyboardist with Circuline and Cell 15. He also is going to be the new Keith Emerson. Somebody bought the music of the estate. He'll be their keyboard player. He'll be the new Keith Emerson.
Oh, very cool.
The Jazz Holdouts, Eric Bayak, Smooth Jazz, Renee Casanova, classic rock. I have real estate brokers, agents, Century 21. I have a club in Manhattan I handle, on and on. And I handle Jean-Luc Ponty and Jon Anderson from Yes.
Very cool.
And others. Anyway, I don't want to just promote everybody.
This is the name dropping part of the interview.
Yeah, the name dropping. But here's what happens. The way I sell this, the honest way, is which is funny, is you need to stop wasting time. If you're a creator, a musician, you need to create your music. You need to be on Facebook 3 times a day to respond to your people. But if you do that, how are you going to get in the studio and finish your music? You need to find content. How are you going to do that if you have a small business selling shoes? You have to serve your customers. So that was the premise. So I'm going to save you time. I'm going to save you energy. And on top of all of this, I'm going to charge 1/10 what other I charge less than some of this automated software you see out there, the Hootsuite and Jarvee and Sprout Social. They charge you $150 a month and you still have to work. So I charge a very reasonable fee, $198 a month to do all your Facebook. That means content, responses, messages, everything, pressing, whatever you have to do. And then I go to, and it's a great learning thing, because I don't know shit about real estate, but I have to answer. So I call up, they teach me what to say, how to answer. So I'm loving this. It gives me as much excitement as it does doing music in some ways, in a lot of ways, actually.
And where can people get a hold of you if they want to get turned on to that? It's Go ahead.
Go ahead.
It's JG, like Jamie Glaser, -S for social media.com. JG-smedia.com.
Right. And there's a contact there. You can write me now that I hate to sound like a salesman, but I'm going to sell it. There, I do a 3-day trial. That I will not take your credit card. I don't even want to know where you are, what your email is even. You contact me, and the only thing that I would have to do, primarily Facebook, is you'd have to give me an administrative role on your page, your business page, and we're off to the races. And in 3 days, if you don't see that your page is starting to explode, then we'll be friends and bye-bye. I will tell you that except for one artist who was really having a tough time financially, every single person has hired me after the trial.
Awesome.
Everyone. And I'm proud of that. And I have a very small team, a guy in North Carolina who's helping me when I'm a musician. So if I'm on Facebook all day, and people think I'm on Facebook all day, right? But I have software that's on, I'm not on.
Shh, keep something secret.
Well, I have my posts scheduled for 4 weeks in advance. So what I do is I get on it once a day and I respond to people, which is the most important thing, because otherwise it's not social media, right, Craig?
100%.
So if they're just pressing great thing, Jamie, I'm not being social.
So if you're interested in some help with your social media and you want to connect with Jamie, he's got a lot of experience at it. Check out his website at jg-smedia.com. Go to jamieglaser.com to check out his book, and go to cyberschool.com. That website is go-to-cyberschool.com. And in summary, what have we learned about you? You didn't get the girls, you didn't get Hendrix, but you are an innovator. In my mind, you're an innovator of yourself. You're an extremely compassionate guy, and you're extremely resilient. And I want to thank you very, very, very much for all your time, man. You're a very sweet guy. I'm glad we got to connect. We're going to stay in touch. And
you're very
thank
special.
You, man.
From my perspective, being the item, the product, especially on tour, when we were doing Jean-Luc and Jon Anderson, I was doing 2 interviews a day, and we worked through Glass Onion Promotions. They were getting me all kinds of stuff.
Billy.
It's shocking how much people want to talk to me at that time, right? And they're not like you. This is
Thanks,
for the people listening to Craig's show. Keep supporting this show and loving your guitar, no matter what level you're at. I don't care if you play one chord or if you are a super pro. We're all kind of like brothers and sisters because we know something that nobody else knows. If you think about that, next time you touch your guitar, you'll realize, you could explain to your parents and your girlfriend and your boyfriend and whoever that this is something special, and they will never know.
Which is very true.
Right?
Listen, man, thank you. You're very generous with your time, man. You're very, very sweet, and I really appreciate it, man.
Thank you. And I hope that people will still listen to you after hearing my stuff. I got to get going to work here in the snow.
Everybody, listen, thank you very much for listening. If you enjoyed this interview, please share it with a friend on your social media channels. We appreciate your support and your help with that. Thank you very much to Jamie Glaser for spending time with us. Please check him out. His book is called Hear the Silence. You can check it out on his website at jamieglaser.com, Glaser. For social media info for Jamie's company and to connect with him, it's jg-smedia.com, or the actual URL of this, go to cyberschool.com. And that's all one word, go to cyberschool.com. Make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com, sign up to get on our newsletter list so you and I can connect. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I'm out. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.